William. Ato in Juba, Malatori, hey, I'm yo, in Ping William. Ato in Benti, Walla Quadu, hey, wow, in Ping William. Ato in Malkal, Walla Pinyaram, in Ping William.
Thank you so much, our viewers, wherever you are tuning in. Welcome to Lagos State Media Beyond Boundaries. And in the studio with us, we have two important guests. And these are young minds, full of intellect, full of ideas, full of energy, who want to speak about the affairs of our country. And they want also to share their ideas on what is happening in the country in regard to the elections next year, 2024, December. And as most of you are aware, last week we host most of our guests here, and they spoke eloquently, and most of you admired them. And you even requested Lagos State Media to bring them back and even to organize a weekly show with them so that you can also get to appreciate their ideas and appreciate the brain, the young brains in our country. Today we have a gathering, Machar, in the studio with us. And as you can see, he's on his king chair, trying to articulate the affairs of the nation. To speak to you young people outside there, those who don't believe in the philosophy of the SPLM and those who believe in the philosophy of the SPLM. Agel is there to give you what you're supposed to believe, and the idea or the chance is yours to reject his ideas or to accept or to be convinced. On the same note, we have our permanent activist, somebody that has been there for so long, trying to speak to the heart and the mind of young people, and that is none other than Wani Michael. Welcome to Lagos State Media once again, and we are really happy to host you today, you two gentlemen. South Sudan is proud of you, and your fellow youth are looking forward to hear from you. After this juncture, our viewers, kindly, I request you to share the live show so that it can reach to many South Sudanese. Thank you so much. Keep sharing it. That is what you can do to your gentlemen or to the gentlemen of the studio for many South Sudanese to check and hear from them. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we look forward for meaningful discussions. Allowed me to invite each one of them 1 minute or 2 minutes to give us his opening remark before we roam around the issues of elections and the roundtable invitation extended to the all-out group by the government of South Sudan. I will give it or yield it back to Abraham Adit. If you have anything to add, if not, then we'll go straight to our guest.
Thank you, Juma Kuleda. I welcome our guest. We have one more guest is on the way. Comrade Dengbol Larway is on his way. He will join the panels very soon. Thank you.
Wow, wow. I can see the show is becoming hot and hot. And for that reason, kindly try to share it so that we can have meaningful discussion. And remember, our viewers will not keep you for long as we did last week. And we promise we don't need to keep our guests for quite long. And we don't need also to give you our time to struggle with the MTN on how to get MBs and all that. And we'll try to make it short, at least to balance the economy of our country, as all of us are aware of it. Let me welcome my colleague, who is our guest, actually, Wani Michael. Give us your opening remark. Thereafter, we move to Agel R. Thanks.
First of all, I want to sincerely thank Lagos State Media for inviting us for this very important conversation, discussion. I always follow your program. I always listen to your program. And I want to commend you for that, because we needed a South Sudan where people can talk. We can be able to dialogue on very critical issues. So I look forward to a very fruitful conversation around elections, because I have seen my brother who has put on red and yellow has been moving around. He was in Egypt, he was in Nairobi talking about elections. He has been doing endorsement for his chairman in WOW for the Greater Baragazal. The Equatoria one is coming soon, and all these things. So I felt it's important for us to have a conversation in terms of facts and in terms of context around elections, and also give our views in terms of the round table. And I want to say that I have known Agel Machar for a very long time, and I love the fact that he's somebody who appreciates intellectual conversation. So I look forward to a fruitful discussion, and I look forward also to interact with our fellow Sudanese. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wani Michael, for the recommendations and for the recognition. We really appreciate those South Sudanese always follow our programs on Lake State Media. And we believe South Sudan indeed really needs sharing of ideas than sharing some of the things to do with the guns or money. South Sudanese need ideas now than before. And we really believe as Lake State Media, you young mind, will be the right people to deliver the ideas which South Sudan really need. I will yield it back to Agel Machar. The chance is yours with the red. You're welcome.
Thank you very much once again, Let's State Media. Basically, I'm happy that my brother, Wani Michael, is junior to me, but he's one of the young people that I've admired for a very long time. And I have an eye for identifying people who are independent-minded, who are committed to intellect and truthfulness and to public service among our generation. And he's one of the people that I would always wanted to interact with and to share ideas with, and to learn from him and also to learn from me. So it's good that he is here today. This extended period that we are in now, 24 months, the idea was that after 24 months we would go into elections, and one of the key issues was for them to sensitize the public about where we are right now. That should have even been done from 2018 when the agreement was signed. That you need to go out, Comrade Selfa and Comrade Riek Machar and the SOA and the OPP were supposed to go out jointly and sensitize our public and educate them about the agreement itself, the same way those of Dr. John Garang did in 2000, beginning late 2004, beginning 2005, when they went all around trying to educate our people what the agreement entails, so that the people are prepared for implementation. That never happened in the first 3 years, and it has not happened so far in these 24 months. Because unless you bring the people on board, you will be leading alone. And I thought when the issue came up that the elections are coming, I thought it was time for people like us who have been volunteers for a very long time for SPLM. We have been volunteers in the SPLM convention in 2008 to shape it so that doesn't cause us crisis. We took a lead in 2010 elections. We took a lead in the referendum of 2011. We took a lead in 2012 crisis, shutting down of oil and the Hijili war. So we thought that it was time for us now to come back and spark a public debate and get our people of South Sudan from across political divides, even those who are not politically aligned, the civil society, the women and the youth, to start talking about what is it that we're going to do at the end of this extended period. I'm happy since I got engaged and I put back my khaki, my uniform of SPLM, which by the way, this red uniform, I wanted, first time I wanted was in 1989. Before the SPLM adopted it as its color, it was originally the color of the Red Army. So the red t-shirt I'm wearing, I've worn it for a very long time, for decades. So I decided to put on this uniform to spark a public debate so that we, as the people of South Sudan, speak loudly to our leaders and tell them, this is what we want. Not what they want. This is what we want you to do for us as our leaders. Because leaders are servants of the people. So the masters of leaders are the people. So the people need to start engaging and starting telling the leaders that that's you as our servants, as public servants. We, the public, this is what we want you to do. We want you to take us into elections in 2024, December, and we want you to do this prerequisite within this time. Or we don't feel like we can go into election before these prerequisites are met. We need to hear from you. So even though I'm wearing red, I'm just an ordinary member of the SPLM. I'm not assigned by the SPLM, either in the party or in the government. So I'm not a beneficiary of the SPLM, as you see. Since I joined it in 1988, up to now, I'm not a beneficiary of the SPLM. I'm just a volunteer of the SPLM, and that's why I can speak freely, and I want to engage with our people. I'm not afraid of anybody. I will speak to the SPLM-IO. I will speak to anybody. I will speak to Thomas Frillo. I will speak to whoever. We need to hear from each other as the people of South Sudan so that we can transition our country into a peaceful atmosphere. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Agel Machar. For that, you came up with a very good idea that South Sudanese need to talk. And we really appreciate your dedication to sensitize and make our people aware that there are some things that are on our way, yet we are moving toward the election. Thank you for that. And Lagos State Media is your platform. If there is anything that you want to share with South Sudanese, those who are in the studio and those who are watching, you're highly welcome. Lagos State Media also share your views to your fellow South Sudanese. We recognize those who are watching us live now from East Africa, from South Sudan, across 3 regions, Equatorial, Barkazal, and Upper Nile, and those who are watching us from other part of Africa. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now we'll move to the questioning section so that we can discuss the issue of election. I'll begin with Wani Michael. Comrade Wani, you are one of the people that has been at the front line when it comes to the affairs and the politics of this country and how the nation has been run for the last 10 or 12 years in the independent time and before independent even. And you know, holding all these factors constant, the revitalized peace agreement has been implemented, some chapters are not yet been implemented, and the extensions has been there frequently. If some things are not rightfully in place, then the government will sit down and extend to see that the full implementation of the agreement is achieved before we go for an election. And last year, they extended for what they call as a roadmap. And the roadmap gave us to what's now being termed as elections next year, 2024, December. What is your take about the election? You have seen the SPLM, who is the ruling party, the mother party, campaigning across the country. And there are many political parties in the country, and most of them look to be dormant and passive. What is your opinions and what is your take on that? Do you believe that we should go for an election? And if yes, what are the reasons that you can convince South Sudanese that elections is the best option? Or do you believe that we should not go for an election, and why? What are some of the consequences if we go for an election, or can prevent us not to go for an election? The chance is yours, Wani Michael, and thereafter we come back to Agel Machar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to put some facts and context. First of all, the issue of election is not starting. We are not starting it now. You remember very well that when we got our independence, we had a transitional constitution. And the reason why we had a transitional constitution was that so that we were able to write a new constitution that can anchor us into a new constitutional dispensation. Ordinarily, we are supposed to have elections, I think in 2015. And I remember very well by then I was working for IRI, which was an American-funded organization working with the political parties, including SPLM. And I remember we facilitated conversations around the SPLM, the political party bureau. I remember very well they used to meet at home and away back in the days 2012, 2013. And the idea was around elections, that the countries should prepare themselves for elections. In 2015, I think 2014, 2015. And SPLM already started this conversation around elections. And I don't know whether you may recall very well, different functions came out from the SPLM. I remember Dr. Machar came with this 6-point program that he felt the president, who wanted to be given another chance in the party, According to him, he has failed. So he wanted to be given the flag bearer of the SPLM. And that's where the crisis in the SPLM started from there. And I remember that was the last time SPLM had a political bureau. I'm talking about 2013 incidents, before we had, of course, the conflict of December. So elections started long time. And because the SPLM could not appreciate internal democracy, the SPLM could not appreciate competitive politics within themselves. That's why we had the crisis in 2013. When we had a crisis in 2013, they decided to split themselves into different political parties. But also, we should recall that we also had an election in 2010, by the way, which I will talk about it briefly in terms of context as we talk about 2024 or beyond. So you had an agreement that was signed in 2015, which was supposed to culminate into an elections, which, of course, they had a crisis in 2016. We had a crisis in 2016, and Dr. Young Machar was disposed of his position. Taban Dengai became the first vice president. Still, elections could not be conducted because there was still an active conflict in the country. So many groups came out. That's why you have SOA, you have so many groups. This one wasn't there in the 2015 agreement. Remember, in 2015 agreement, you only had the SPLM IG, which is the SPLM in government, and the SPLM IO, where Agel Machar was part of the SPLM IO in the 2015 agreement. So you can see that we failed to have an election in 2015 because of SPLM not representing internal democracy and not even representing competition within itself. Again, they failed to implement the agreement of 2015, which was supposed to give us an election. They end up fighting themselves. Then we have the 2018 peace agreement, which the end product of 2018 agreement was supposed to be elections. And they were given 36 months to implement the RRCs, and immediately after, before the end of the transitional period, we are supposed to have an elections. And there are very clear timeline. But if you look at the agreement, it is very clear what they're supposed to do in day 1, day 2, day 3, until you finish the implementation of the agreement. But then you're having people who are not having the political will to implement the agreement itself. They continue to drag, even, I remember the pre-transitional period was extended over 3 times because they kept on asking for more time to sort out pre-transitional activities. Even we entered into the transitional period, still resolving issues of pre-transitional activities that were not finished, something that they agreed to do within the pre-transitional period. They failed to conduct election within that 6 months that they agreed in the agreement. And then they came with this thing called roadmap, which is some of us, personally, I rejected the roadmap because I knew very well that these people will never deliver an elections. And one of the arguments some of us were having is that if you want to extend the agreement, if you want to have a roadmap, then you must zero down the activities, because the agreement has about 8 chapters, but the most important one are about six or 7 chapters. But now you wanted them to implement everything within the 24 months, something that they could not do within 36 months. It's just logic that they could not do it. So when I hear my brother Agel Machar and his party talking about elections, I don't want to break it down. Election is a process. Election is not an event. It's not an event where you go to SPLM house, you organize a gathering in SPLM house, you have your chairman and all these people, and you have an event. That is not the election. Election is a process. It starts from the very beginning of the activities that are supposed to be laid down by the Electoral Commission. And this is why I want to point out to South Sudanese why SPLM is not ready for elections. One, the agreement provides for the constitution-making process under Chapter 6 of the agreement. And I remember very well last year, on the 21st of December, 2022, the president signed the Constitution-Making Process Act, which was to regulate the constitution-making process. The same law gave the Article of 45 days to reconstitute the National Constitution Review Commission, and I can speak to you up to now with the fear of contradiction, it has never been reconstituted. So you don't have the National Constitution Review Commission is not operational. You don't have anybody doing any work on the Constitution. It is a very fundamental prerequisite for elections. You cannot conduct an election without the Constitution. I was a member of the National Constitution Amendment Committee. I participated in writing of the current Constitution where RT Gono are using. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction, the current Constitution of South Sudan does not support elections. Because you have 5 vice presidents in the current Constitution. And everything to do with the elections, we amended it to talk about appointment. That's why even MPs are appointed. In the Constitution, that's how it is. So we don't have a Constitution that supports elections. I hear arguments, people saying that, okay, can we amend the national electoral, the electoral law to appreciate elections? You cannot amend the electoral laws without amending the Constitution, without having a constitutional backing. So we needed to write a new Constitution, because if you're going to amend even the current Constitution, I can guarantee you must amend over 80% of the Constitution. Because even the preamble, by the way, people don't know these things, but the preamble even have been changed. It's not the preamble of 2011 that we had in 2011. By the way, we have mutilated the Constitution. I think there are about 9 amendments down to the Constitution now. So people still want to read the Constitution of 2011 the way it is. It is not, because it has been mutilated. So many things have changed. I know for a fact on the few things in the Bill of Rights that remains, but most of the things have been changed. So you don't have a constitution, you don't have an electoral law to support elections. So you talk about the constitutionality and the legality of the elections. You're going to organize elections under what constitutional and legal framework? You don't have it. That is one. The second thing is this: you don't have the security arrangements are not in place. Up to now, the unification of the forces is still a language. They haven't fully unified the forces. Some years back, you saw people going to SPLM house with the military uniform, that they have defected from IO to SPLM IG. With military uniform to where a girl sits, the SPLM, you see? So, and even you're having an army attached to political parties. You're having the army attached to SPLM, or SPLM-IO. So we needed a national army which is non-partisan, because that's what the law requires. The current constitution says the national army shall be non-partisan, shall be non-political. But you are having even army attending rallies, rallies of SPLM. We saw in WOW, where the military people were there. It is a political rally of the SPLM. You only needed the police to provide security, but you don't need the military to be there. To do what? Because they're supposed to protect everybody. So the security still, it's a very serious issue. And I want to reiterate this: I cannot go to vote if my security is not guaranteed. I remember very well in 2010 elections, in some areas, people were forced to vote for the star. And this is not a lie. In 2010 elections, some people were forced to vote for the star. People use the security apparatus to ensure that people vote for the star. So how safe are we if the SSPDF still think that they are part of the SPLM? They don't want to deassociate themselves from the SPLM. That is another critical issue about security. People cannot go to vote if their security is not guaranteed. The other issue is about the reconstitution of the National Electoral Commission. Up to now, the Electoral Commission is not reconstituted. So you hear this endorsement. I wonder, you are endorsing candidates for what? For what elections? Because the Electoral Commission has not come out openly to tell South Sudanese that we're ready for elections. So who is organizing this election? Is it SPLM organizing the elections, or is it supposed to be the Electoral Commission organizing the elections? So we needed the Electoral Commission to be non-partisan and should be neutral body, because it is the referee. The Electoral Commission is the referee. Must ensure that there's a level ground for every political actor to be able to compete fairly, free and fair. In other jurisdictions, those of Agel Machar will have been charged for electoral offense, because you cannot start electoral activities if the Electoral Commission has not officially declared that it is time for us to start elections. So you're doing endorsement when there's not even calendar from the Electoral Commission. Another thing very critical, and I want Junubin to pay attention to, is that if the SPLM or the RT Gono mean business with the elections, why did they not budget for elections? In fact, I was looking at the budget, and I want to read to South Sudanese so that they know these facts. If you look at the activities provided for by the chairman of the Electoral Commission, the activities are very clear, and these activities in fact speaks to elections. The activity number one, which is task number one, he said infrastructural development, which he said he needed to construct electoral commission office in the headquarters and in the states. And then he said he want to purchase vehicles, he want to furnish his office. Task number two, he want to procurement of election equipment and materials, procure voter education materials, conduct voter and civic education, coordinate voter and civic education. Task number three, election campaign and publicity, recruit and train registration and polling staffs, demeaning and demarcate consequences, facilitate transportation, distribution, retrieve of registration and polling materials. The Electoral Commission provided the government with its activities in the current budget. But do you know how much they gave them? 281 million South Sudanese pounds from the budget of from the budget of 2 trillion South Sudanese pounds. So if the government is ready for elections, how can you give somebody who has given you these activities to conduct elections 281 million, which is an equivalent of around over 200,000 US dollars, and then you give roads where some of us know that's where looting is happening. You give Ministry of Roads to construct roads, not even new roads, 437 billion. Look at this. You want elections in 2024, but you are giving the Electoral Commission 281 million, only 281 million. But you are giving 437 billion unless the figures change. So this is a clear indication that the government is not ready for elections. Because where will the Electoral Commission get the money to do all these activities to prepare us for elections? So you look at the budget itself, they have not budgeted for this. The argument they are saying is that they will budget for election in the next financial year. The next financial year will be in July next year. And they say election is what? In December. How will the Electoral Commission do things within 4 months? Register voters, sensitize the voters, have time for candidates to campaign and all these things, nomination, crazy things, within 4 months. Can it really happen? This is a question that we need to ask ourselves. So it has been a game that they have been playing overall to say that they're going to do election in 2024, when they know very well that they have not put those processes in place. My second last issue is about repatriation and resettlement. We know for a fact that there are places in South Sudan that there are no people. For example, where I come from, there are areas where there are no people. So you are going to face challenges of where you will not have MPs coming from other areas. Election is about inclusivity, it's about the national unity of the country. But now if you're going to have elections conducted where some areas will not have representation at the national level, so there must be clear conversation. How do we involve maybe refugees? How do we involve the IDPs in the voting process, which is still a crazy process that needed to be done. My other issue is about the other third arm of government, the judiciary. You cannot organize an election if you don't have an independent judiciary. The other day, the Chief Justice was in Wow attending a political rally of the SPLM. Who told the Chief Justice that he belongs to the SPLM party? The Chief Justice is the head of the court. He's the president of the court. He is to be independent because Because one of the things that mistake that we did in 2010 election was that we never had courts to resolve disputes. Election is about competition. So if I feel the SPLM has robbed my win, because they're used to this robbing thing, if they rob my win, where will I go? Will I go to the bush and fight? So the courts must be independent. I must go to the court. I go to which court? When the Chief Justice is purely an SPLM person. So we needed to reform the judiciary to be able to be independent and impartial, so that they can be able to adjudicate matters of disputes between different parties. Lastly, there must be open political space and civil space. I said the SPLM fear competition. If you are to go for free and fair election, credible election in South Sudan, when the space is open, political space is open, they will see a tsunami of how people will sweep over almost every position. But the political space is not open. I have been charged for treason. I have been charged for treason in absentia because we call out on the president and his government that they have failed the people of South Sudan. I can guarantee you, you cannot say Kir must go in Juba or in South Sudan. But that is what election is. If somebody is contesting against the president, his idea is the government must go so that he form a new government. But you cannot do that, because you have a security attached to the party, attached to think that they're going to protect the SPLM, which is in government. So there must be a political space open. People must be able to say, to criticize the government in Juba or in South Sudan, and nobody is taken to Blue House. Nobody is charged for treason, because we are using our constitutional right of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So I will conclude that in all these activities you could see, even census, very, very important thing. You are going to do election under what distribution? The other day they came with a fake population distribution and decided to give areas where they think the president enjoys a very good support. They gave it a very big number. How will you convince me that Warab State has more population than Juba? Like, logically, how will you convince me? Juba is the capital city of South Sudan, where everybody is, but you're telling me that the whole of Warab State is populated than Central Equatoria, where you have a capital city, Juba, which has almost everybody. You see? So you needed to have a census. Can we do census between now and then? Have they budget for it? No. So I will really say that we won elections, but based on the current context that we are, realities on the ground, even the SPLM knows about it. That is why the government is writing to the UN to help them. Through the Minister of Government Affairs, Martin Elia, wrote to the UN to help them with the electoral processes. Where on earth do you want a sovereign responsibility of the government to be given to another international body to do for you? It is a government responsibility. We have the money. The other day, the Minister of Petroleum said we are pumping over 40 million South Sudan, US dollars per month. Where is that money? So we can conduct elections. But the problem is that the SPLM is not ready for competition. And this has been history. We already have facts to this. They don't want people to compete for election. So they know very well the game is to extend the agreement, because they are not ready to start the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wani Michael. I did not time you simply because you want to give more information in regard to why the elections will not be in place next year. You lay out all the fact constants, but I will ask you the follow-up question after Agel to see your opinions. Is it improper or is it proper for South Sudan not to go for elections, holding all these issues available that you have outlined, of which some of them were actually outlined last week during our first interview with Agel. He actually laid out some of the reasons that you have just mentioned. But the question is, are South Sudanese ready to wait for another 6 years extension with this huge government? So that questions you will answer it after Agel responds to your opinions.
Before I respond to some of the things that Wani Michael, my brother, Wani Michael have raised, he has only spoken about why elections cannot be conducted by December 2024. But before I respond to him, I want to hear his view. If the election cannot be conducted December 2024, what is the alternative?
Thank you.
Respond to all his views. What does he want us to do?
Thank you so much, Agel, for actually listening very keenly to see what Wani Michael will put on the table so that you can respond to his opinion. Yeah, you have been given a chance, Wani Michael. You actually lay out the issues that you think prevent elections, that you think SPLM is not ready for an election. If we are not going for an elections 2024 December, what should be an option? That's one. Number two, if we are not going for an elections next year December, what will the whole government look like? The economy of the country, the situation our people are in. The chance is yours to give us those opinions before we come to a gallery. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to appreciate and recognize my brother. He's the elder brother because of age. and of course experience. He has been in the political arena more than some of us. I recognize the fact that he's my senior, my brother, my good brother, Agel Machar. The option of elections, for me, where I sit as a voter, as a South Sudanese, 2024, December is not possible. I've already laid down the reasons why it is not possible. Because all these activities require time. I don't think you can do certain activities within 1 month, except if they do the kangaroo way. Remember how they passed the transitional constitution, the one now people refer it to be the constitution of the my good friend, the late Honorable John Luke. In fact, I had a conversation with some members of parliament before when I was in Juba, and they told me that the one they passed in parliament was not the one that the president signed in 2011. Some changes were done to that constitution. So unless things happen at midnight, which of course SPLM is good at that, they are known for that, where they can do things behind the curtain and then you are taken by surprise. They can issue a decree and say already we have decreed this constitution to be the one operating for us. But where I sit, even if they do that, it is not possible to do election in 2024 because you first needed to start the process itself. I say for those who love soccer, if the game is being played between Man U and Arsenal, you need a referee, and the referee always must be neutral. So we cannot go for election where SPLM purport to be the referee. We need.
Brother Michael, you are going back to the reasons why elections cannot be conducted. We have seen that very clearly. You have spoken for half an hour. Tell us the way forward. What can we do as the people of South Sudan?
For me, the way forward,
I support that there's no way we can conduct.
Yes, for me.
Go ahead. You have convinced me that there is a. Go ahead.
For me, where I sit, because you gave me options, whether 2024, if election happen, of course it may happen, but it will be an SPLM affairs elections. Of course, I said everything is possible in South Sudan, but not within the confines of the agreement or within the confines of the law. It will be something that will be extraordinary, of course. But for me, the way forward is this. The way forward is the round table. Why do I feel we needed the round table? Remember, we had the national dialogue before, which was called by the president himself. But now when the national dialogue turned out to something else, the president abandoned the process because people spoke to the issues that affect them. And the citizens were very clear that the problem of South Sudan is leadership. And it even went as far as mentioning individuals' names, you see. So for me, there must be a round table discussion. When I was in Juba before the before the roadmap, we had engaged development partners who are part of the RJMEC. And our argument was that if you're going to extend the agreement, this agreement is very huge. If these guys cannot implement this agreement within 36 months, add to the other extension that they had in seasonal period, what miracles do they need to implement this agreement as a whole? So our suggestion was then that, can you then narrow down the agreement to focus on activities that can lead us into elections? For example, activities on constitution making process, activities to do with census, activities to do with reconstitution of the National Electoral Commission, and these other activities. So there's need for a roundtable discussion between the RT Gono and these other whole-out groups and other civil society actors, so that we come and discuss, how do we move this country forward? How do we organize a process that leads us into elections? Because the current RT Gono will never deliver us elections. Even if you give them another 3 years, they will still be fidgeting. They will still be struggling. So I support the idea of a round table, that people need to talk. People need to sit down and talk and say, indeed, this is the problem we are in. How do we get out of this problem? And for me, the problem also we had, even with the peace agreement, was the issue of narrowing that agreement to two individuals. That's why if you read the agreement, you find there are two individuals mentioned in the agreement: the president, the president, and his first vice president. In fact, when we were working on the constitution, I remember colleagues from the SPLM and the IO wanted us to include these guys in the constitution. We said there's nowhere in the world where you put individuals in a constitution. So we need a conversation beyond President Kiir, conversation beyond Dr. Riak and everybody. It must be a conversation about South Sudanese. How do we move forward? How do we think beyond individuals? So for me, I support the idea of a round table that must be inclusive, which agenda must set out, lead us into elections with a very clear timeline and framework. And in that round table, then this can be able to decide which system will be able to help us to lead us into elections. Because, as I said earlier on, Artigono will never deliver us to elections because they keep giving us excuse. Now the excuse they're giving us is about the war in Sudan. So my way forward is that there must be a round table that include those who are in Rome, those who are in Juba, and civil society actors and the church. We must sit down and say, this is the problem we're in. How do we get out of this? How do we start the conversation that can lead us into elections? Thank you.
Before you end there, Wani Michael, don't you believe if you sit down at the round table, don't you believe round table will also give birth to another extension? Or you believe that round table will magically reduce the size of the government? Or do you believe the whole out group will accept to stay back, sit at home in Juba, and allow the current government to move on with whatever time that they will agree upon? Because everyone wants to eat too.
I say you need an inclusive roundtable, and in the roundtable, the agenda must be very clear. You must be able to come up with clear activities that lead us into elections. I told you before that when I was still in Juba in 2021, when the conversation around extension started, some of us reached out to the development partners, and we told them, the international partners, we told them that if you're going to extend these people their mandate, you must be able to zero down specific tasks, not the whole agreement, because even if you give these guys 100 years to implement the agreement from chapter 1 to the last chapter, they will never implement it. So zero it down to specific activities that lead us into elections. So if we're going to have a roundtable, the roundtable must be discussing beyond individuals who have been, the agreement have been centered around them. For us to discuss, how do we write a new constitution, for example? How do we do census? How do we create a conducive political environment for us to go to election? So there must be a discussion on what leads us into elections with very clear timeline, but not discuss about, hey, we needed money for roads, which is of course good, but you needed elections. So that we also look at where do we get the money from to do our elections. So me, I support the round table because the round table will provide us an opportunity to discuss the fundamental issue that lead us into elections, because Artigono will not.
Yeah, thank you. We will come back into that issue later on, but we need to hear from Agel. Agel, the chance is yours, and you also need to tell us your opinions exactly based on Wani Michael ideas, the challenges you laid down that should not allow us to go for an election, and what is support is roundtable, of which a roundtable is said roundtable will give us a clear agenda. Even if it means to reduce the revitalized peace agreement to specific chapters, 2 or 3, that will lead us to elections, then that is better than writing for an election without census, without budget, without constitution making, without reconstitutions of electoral commission. The chance is yours again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just try to be as brief as possible. The reason I told before, while we are back in why I suspended my political hibernation and I try to be more proactive again, is simple, because this period of the next 2 years is crucial for the future of the country. Just like 2012, 2013 was crucial for the direction of the people of South Sudan. We in the SPLM will say that it is possible for us to narrow down to a few things that are critical prerequisites for conduct of the election in December 2024. For example, when it comes to issues of constitution, we can amend the current constitution where it is necessary within the next 18 months, 16 months, to make sure that this constitution takes us to election. Remember, this is the constitution that we use, or the version of it that we use to conduct the 2010 elections. It can be amended in different ways. There are some acts that need amendment, including, he spoke about the National Security Act of 2014. It's already under the process of amendment. He's talking about the Electoral Commission, the establishment and reconstitution of the Election Commission. Its law is already in the process in Parliament. We still have enough time to reconstitute it so that we can have a referee that is neutral. We can also, the process of the Political Parties Council Act that determines the registration of political parties and how political parties can maneuver and can operate in the country, can also be done. These are the things that I want us to narrow down to. Instead of concentrating on the entire agreement, we can narrow down to those things that are critical to the conduct of free and fair elections. And constitution, we can use current constitution with amendments. We can use the census of 2008, since the whatever they did, the assessment, the census assessment that they did is more controversial than 2008. People can revert back to the 2008 census, because if there is any growth in census, it affects everybody. If there is a reduction, it is for everybody. So we can go back to 2008 census. Forget about this census that has become controversial, where he was talking about Warab being more than unity state and so forth. For me, I also had issues about, because I didn't understand, I didn't get the paperwork and the criteria in which it was done. So we had agreed, even though we did not like it in 2008 census, because we thought that the Sudan did not count us properly as people of South Sudan. But within us, we can use 2008 census. That can put aside the issue of census. If we are really ready for elections, if we really think that this government, even if they are given 10 years, they will not do anything, let us go for elections. That's what the SPLM says. Constitutional amendment can be done. Political Parties Council Act can be done within 18 months. Electoral Commission can be reconstituted within that period of time. Certain acts that are critical to elections, like Security Council, the National Security Act of 2014 can be amended to remove the national security and the so-called Blue House out of politics. Legally, it can all be done. The issue of budget, yes, there is some budget that has been done, have been provided to the Electoral Commission for its reconstitution. But some of the things that they need to do will be needed after they have used the money that they have been given in this budget, 2023, 2024, to reconstitute themselves, things like the office, their own vehicles, and so forth and so forth. This can be done. But what you have to understand is that when they begin to become proactive, we don't have to wait for June next year. There is something called supplementary budget. The reconstituted commission can submit a supplementary budget anytime from now. With the budget they have been given in this year, they can reconstitute themselves submit a supplementary budget to the cabinet, and the cabinet can approve it, send it to parliament, parliament can approve it, and can be done. Some of the things that you want, like the ballot papers, buying of the ballot papers, buying the cars, and so forth. From June, you don't need 6 months to buy cars. You only need 3 weeks to buy cars. So there are many things that were listed by Comrade Michael, Wani Michael, that can be done from next year, June. And there are things that can be done from this budget right now. And there are things that can be done through an introduction of supplementary budget. So when it comes to the Electoral Commission, they will be given the money they need. And with the, well, hopefully with the help of our partners, the UNIMIS and the rest, they can be able to supplement this body when it is reconstituted. The budget that is given this year is to make sure that they are reconstituted, okay, and they are able to speak from their own office what they need, whether they need it from the government of South Sudan, or the national government of unity, not the SPLM government, but the government of national unity, or what they need from the international partners or UNIMIS. So it is still possible to do election. When it comes to refugees, there is still enough time for those that want to return voluntarily to their homes. 18 months is enough. We have been refugees before, myself. And you know that if you want to go back to your home, it doesn't take you long. Especially now that we don't have to walk on foot like we used to do in the 80s. There are buses, there are cars, and there are planes. People can go back. But if not, we remember in referendum, people of South Sudan voted according to the law of referendum, allowed the people of South Sudan to vote wherever they are. I was one of the people that organized what is called the Youth Forum for Referendum, that used to wear the orange t-shirts. And I was the one that was in charge of international mobilization. I went to Australia, America, and Canada to mobilize and sensitize our people to vote. And they voted wherever they are for referendum. And they become part and parcel of the 99% that voted for independence. So there is still time for dialogue, that we can find a way that we can regulate how those who are in IDPs or those who are refugee camps can vote. And those who think that they want to vote in their own places, they can still move. 18 months is still a lot of time. You understand? So the issues of repatriation can be done. Issues of judiciary, yes, judicial reform, it is still in the process. But we shouldn't take the fact that the Chief Justice, I've said it before, was in WOW to misconstrue it as if he was attending a rally. He was only spotted in WOW. He was not spotted at the rally in the stadium. He was not spotted wearing t-shirt like I'm wearing. He was only in WOW to speak to the president and proceed to see his family. You cannot go to see your family in Kwajuk and you see the president there and you don't see him, and he's somebody that's been constitutionally assigned to work with you. So he met with the president in WOW and he proceeded to Kwajuk. He wasn't in
Moreover, is the president that always decreed me in and decreed me out. So I had to see him because there is no option. I cannot see him.
Yeah, there's no way. The Chief Justice went to the president and they talked to the president outside the rally. And the president continued to went to his rally and he proceeded to Kwajok. President, after he finished the rally, also proceeded to Kwajok and they met there. It is his right to meet with the president. Even if it is on the weekend, he can meet with the president. But he did not attend the rally. It is being misconstrued. And that is narrow-minded, because the issues of judicial sector reform, it is a very serious issue. We need to look into what is happening in the courts. What is happening with prosecutors? Are they free or fair? Are they being bribed? Do we have enough judges? Are the cases being done? It is not about where the Chief Justice is and where he meets the president. That is just dramatization of the issue. So judicial reform needs time. And we need to take example when it comes to issues of the political space, the independence of judiciary, the democratization of parties and the country. Those things cannot be imported on the same day and worn like this t-shirt I'm wearing. This t-shirt can be brought from another country, and as soon as it reaches me, I put it on and it's fine. This thing needs to be cultivated in their own country. It took, how long did it take Uganda, for example? How long did it take Ethiopia, for example? How long did it take Kenya, for example? So you have to understand. And that's why they said, because the SPLM was not open to democratization, they took the people of South Sudan to war in 2013. I always said, and I said this in 2012, I said this 11 years ago. I said, no liberation movement. Because liberation movement by nature are not democratic. They are a tool to bring about change. So you cannot, somebody that has been cultured in 21 years cannot in 3 years be forced to deal with these foreign ideas and these democratic ideals. That's why it took Kenya and KANU from 1963 to 1992, 29 years. That's why it took Tanzania, Chama cha Mapinduzi, over 30 years. That's why it took Ethiopia from 1942 to 1993, 50-something years. That's why it took even Museveni from 1986 to 2006, it took him 20 years. So the fact that the people of South Sudan, international community, and the Democratic Institute and the IRA, where he was working for, tried to rush the people of South Sudan into democracy. It was a problem because there were no institutions mature enough to manage competition. It is not about individuals, it is about institutions. Even if you bring an American and you make him the chairman of SPLM, he will not manage because there is no institution mature enough that has been grown and has been tightened to manage competition. So the SPLM is ready to democratize itself. And that's why the Arusha Agreement was signed. They accepted their mistakes in 2015, and they said, yes, we are going to change all those issues. Okay? Nothing is going to be treated as special. The chairman will not be given 5% of the members of the convention, for example. The chairman will contest, the deputy will contest separately, and so forth. We are going to have secret ballots instead of show of hands. We have already made those progress that are new to us. We have agreed, and in 2016, we did the SPLM Extraordinary Convention to incorporate all those democratization ideas that were envisaged in the Arusha Agreement into the SPLM Constitution as we speak right now. So the SPLM in the next phase of their convention will be democratic. It will be better than 2008, and will be better if it was conducted in 2013. The SPLM is adjusting to new ideas of how to lead the people of South Sudan. But it is still the only organization that can adapt to the new ways to lead the people of South Sudan from the current difficulties into a future that is united and peaceful and democratic. So this is what I want to say, that the SPLM believes that some of these challenges that have been raised can be handled in the next 18 months, and we can conduct elections in 2014. At worst, even if December, for example, some areas are not accessible, it can even go up to March 2015, when it is the height of the dry season in South Sudan, where all the roads, where all the places are accessible. But people have to be clear, if we cannot conduct elections, what else should we do? And the SPLM is not going to dictate the people of South Sudan. If the agreement and the extension, the roadmap dictates that we have election by the end of 2024, we are going to do that. We are ready for that. We are prepared for that. And we are going to lead with the rest of partners within the agreement to make sure that we usher the people of South Sudan to election. If they say we need an extension, the SPLM will also find a way to cooperate with the peace partners to make sure that an extension is executed. If people are saying, for example, that we need a round table, the SPLM is ready. The SPLM is already invited those of Thomas Rillo, Malongawan, and Pagana Mom, and the rest who are outside to come back to Juba so that we can sit at the table of brotherhood, around the table, and discuss how we can transition our country from war to peace, or from instability into stability and tranquility. They have already done that. I don't know why they're still outside, and I can still appeal to them from now to consider coming back to Juba and sit around the table. So around the table, we don't have issues with it. If other people say, for example, others have said that let's have partial elections. Let us leave the presidential election that is more controversial, and let us conduct local government elections. Let us make sure that the National Assembly, okay, is dissolved, and they go for election, and the local government, like the governors and the commissioners and the state parliaments, go for election, and we leave the presidential the way it is, the president the way it is. Okay, the president and his vice president, we leave them the way they are. That is another option, because if we do that, it means that we will have a parliament that is legitimate, not a parliament that is appointed. And that parliament can help us do things in a fair way. For example, writing the permanent constitution. They will have the mandate of their people, not appointed, not reporting to their bosses that appointed them. And if they go wrong, they can easily be dismissed. These people will give us a better opportunity for us. We can leave those controversial things, those presidential elections that almost take us to abyss and conflict, we can leave it and give these guys a period of, let's say, 4 years. This Constituent Assembly, give them 4 years to write a proper constitution and do proper census and enact proper laws for security sector reform, including the national security of the army, the police, economic sector reforms, and the issues of accountability and the rest, because they will be accountable because they were brought by the people. These are options we can look into. And that's the reason people like us have decided to leave what we're doing in the market and come back into the political scene, because we need to get because we have to communicate with our people. Whether you are in SPLM-IG, you need to communicate with your people. Whether you're in SPLM-IO, whether you are in SOA, whether you're OPP, whether you're in civil society, we need to speak to our people and hear from them. They are not stupid, the people of South Sudan. They understood. They would have not voted 99% for independence if they were Nasbut Mutkalafin, if they were people who are bad-minded and they are not intelligent. How did they know? And they have never been to the movement. They have never been indoctrinated and trained politically like us. They were just in the village taking care of their farms. When the vote came, they all voted for 99% for independence. They know. The issue is that we must speak to them. We must hear from them, even though we don't like what they say. We must open an ear as leaders and hear to them and use their information to adjust our country. So the SPLM says, we are ready for election. Things can be done for the election to be conducted. We can narrow down to a few things that we need for the election. If those things don't get met, we are also ready to listen to the people of South Sudan. If they say, for example, we need a round table, what is wrong with the round table? SPLM have never stopped talking to people. Whether you pick up arms, or you are an armed dissident, or you are an exiled person, the SPLM is already ready to speak. So round table in Juba has no problem. We can do this. If you want partial elections, also be vocal and let the people of South Sudan know. Let the leaders know that is what we want. This is our position as SPLM. That's what we are saying. And what we want is just, and that's why the people like Lake State Media are very important for the people of South Sudan, because they give the platform for opinion leaders to speak to the people and also to hear from the people. Every time we have this conversation, I also get a lot of messages afterwards about what I've said and what needs to be done and what is their view. If they agree with me or disagree with me, I get a lot of them, hundreds of them, within a period of 1 week, which is a lot. So the idea is that let us talk. What is it that will unite us? What is it that will keep our country viable? What is it that will keep our country stable? Is it elections? Let's go for it. The SPLM will lead you into election. And we guarantee, I can guarantee you that the SPLM member, whether you will think that it is free or fair, we are going to win it. Regardless of how it is brought to us, we are going to win it, because we are the only party in the country that has ever delivered anything to the people of South Sudan. Nobody else has delivered anything to the people of South Sudan. Everybody else is talking. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. Nobody has ever done anything to the people of South Sudan other than SPLM over the last 50 years. And that's why we say that if we go for election, we will win it. If we are told, no, don't rush to election, it will bring conflict. We don't want conflict. We will listen. If it is the round table, we will sit around the round table. We will talk facts. If it's something that is not, we will say, no, this is not proper. This is good. Okay? If it is partial election, we are ready to go for partial election. We are ready to leave the presidency where it is. And we go there and we get all our governors of all the 10 states and 3 administrative areas. We get all the MPs in the state and we get the national MPs 90%. And we come back. And we will constitute a new constitution for the people of South Sudan, count the people of South Sudan, do security sector reform, economic sector reform, repatriate our people back home, transitional justice, and so forth. This is what we are saying. This is our position.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Agel Machar, for actually agreeing most of the point with Wani Michael, and you inform him rightly that we are ready for all this. But there is one good idea here, which we really need both of you to at least to clarify it a bit, some of the issues. The issue of partial elections, conducting the local government elections, the MPs, that is assembly, and then we leave the whole presidency constituted of 6 personalities unattached. Then we deal with the governor, the states, and even the assembly. Wani Michael, what is your opinion? So what is your take on that?
Thank you.
If we conduct that elections, it will reduce the size of the parliaments. Now we have over 600 MPs, and the budget to maintain these MPs is very expensive. And we are shouting that our economy is going down day by day. And if we reduce it to 200 something, which is manageable by the nation, then that would be better. Number two, it will also reduce the powers from the presidency. The president will never appoint any time, will never decree out anybody, because these MPs will be elected directly rather by the people, and they will be speaking for the people that they represent in the parliament. Number three, he says these MPs will do things independently. They will not be having any influence from the executive or from the judiciary. They will do things for the interest of the people of South Sudan. The same thing to the governors and to the state assembly. What do you think about that, and what is your take on that?
Thank you. Before I respond to your question, I want to rebut to Agel, my brother Agel. Have mentioned certain points that I note them down because I'm also having a notebook here. I'm noting down 3 issues that I feel like we need to set the facts. One, I am always puzzled. I'm really puzzled if a ruling party like SPLM is not concerned about constitution making process. I am really puzzled. And I am puzzled also because a ruling party which is supposed to spearhead the country or anchor the country into a new constitutional order. In fact, one time I tweeted, I said, the best gift President Kiir can give to us, like what Moi Kibaki of Kenya did, was to give us a good constitution. He mentioned Uganda, he mentioned Kenya. Kenya was not fixed because of elections, by the way. They had a very messy election in 1997, in 2002. Until when they wrote their 2010 constitution, that when they're able to change now 2 presidents, Moi Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta. Now they have a 3rd president. Based on that constitutional order, Uganda had their own political and constitutional crisis since 1962, when they got independent from the UPC, Milton Obote, until the NRM wrote the 1995 constitution. Up to now, that's when they're able to conduct periodic elections. So you cannot resolve crisis, the current crisis we have to do an elections, when you don't have a legal and constitutional framework. And I speak from an informed perspective because I was part of the committee that incorporated the agreement into the constitution. I said earlier that, and if a girl will allow me, I will share with him the constitution. I'm talking about Amendment Act number 6 that incorporated the current agreement to the constitution. We amended almost 80% of the constitution, including the preamble. Remember the preamble we had in 2011 when we had when we got the independence, in 2011. It has been changed. Because the agreement had a preamble that we copied it and pasted it in the constitution. So if you say you're going to amend the current constitution to appreciate elections, I guarantee you, again, you have to amend 80% of the current constitution, which is more or less like writing a new constitution. So I have been wondering, why is a ruling party not concerned about delivering for the people of South Sudan a constitution that will resolve some of this issue? By the way, it is in so many reports that the issue why we had a crisis in 2013 was because of the constitution. You clearly pointed out our current constitution gives the president powers to fire everybody. There was even a time he fired the minister of state, I think in Upper Nile. The current constitution gives the president power to even appoint MPs in the states, is it? Even if they even want to appoint councillors, even appointing ministers for governors, is it? So the problem of South Sudan is not elections. The problem, if we don't have a constitution that speaks to our issues, that speaks to South Sudan issues, we don't have a constitution that speaks to term limits, for example. Some of us are very passionate about term limits because we wanted term limits. You cannot have a president that wants to rule for life. The reason why we are having coups, military coups in Africa, is because they're having leaders who want to rule for life. We want age limits. We don't want a president who may not be able to perform his duties. These things are not there in the current constitution. So if you're going to say you're going to amend the current constitution, which years are you going to give the president? How many years are you going to give the government? So for me, the priority, and I'm puzzled, and I'm sad that the SPLM, which is supposed to deliver us a good constitution, is not concerned about constitution. They don't even mention about it. Every time they sing about elections, elections. But they're not concerned that one thing that can lead into stability is having a good constitution and rule of law. We are living in a country of lawlessness. People take law into their hands. So unless we have a country that people respect the constitution, including the government in power, and there is rule of law. So that is one issue that I want to make it clear. And then the issue of supplementary budget. I don't know whether Agel Machar read the budget that was tabled by the former minister who was fired. Was it yesterday? If you look at that budget that he tabled in parliament, the budget has a deficit of 267 billion, a deficit. So you are running a budget of deficit of 267 billion that you need to find ways of how to get this money. So if you're going to introduce a supplementary budget in parliament, when you already have a deficit, a very huge deficit, so where are you going to get the money when you already have a deficit that you needed to sort it out? So there is no way the government can bring in a supplementary budget because they already have a deficit, and it might go higher because parliament is adding here and there. So this deficit might also suit a little bit higher. The third issue that I want to rebuttal is the issue of the Chief Justice. Agel Machar must understand, and I'm speaking as somebody who has gone to a law school. There are ethics, there are professional ethics that a judge or a justice of the Supreme Court or the Chief Justice must follow. There are professional ethics. And by the way, this is not the first time we are seeing acting this way. Remember the 28 states petition that was filed by Dr. Lamakol. I don't know whether you recall that. The Chief Justice wrote a congratulatory message to the president as a community leader. You don't do that as a Chief Justice. You don't do that. There are certain things you reframe yourself because he's the head of the third arm of government. If there are problems in the courts, the first person to resolve those problems are the Chief Justice. That's why he's called the president of the Supreme Court. He's the president of the court. But now to see our Chief Justice sitting in the same plane with the president, going off to wow, and you're telling me he's going to visit. He knows, the Chief Justice knows, he has been to law school. There are ethical things that you must. That's why even you cannot see Owindolo or the Chief Justice of Uganda. You cannot see him attending, like riding in the same even vehicle with the president. He only attends a government program where the judiciary is involved. Even if you look at Kenya, Justice Martha Koome, is it? So the office he occupied is a very serious office, and I don't know who is going to whisper this to him. He must understand that. And I remember very well when that issue came in court, the 28th state, those of Dr. Lamakol said he must recuse himself because he has already taken side. He has already congratulated the president of 28th state. I remember very well the Deputy Chief Justice by then, the current Minister of Justice, the Justice Ruben, agreed with the petitioners and said, indeed, the Chief Justice need to rescue himself. Do you know what the Chief Justice did? He ran to J1 and these guys, they were fired. Where on earth does the president fire the justice of the Supreme Court who disagree with the government of the day? It do happen everywhere in the world. So, and even you remember the justice there to go after the East African Court of Justice. So even right now as we speak, we don't have a Supreme Court. Personally, Agel Machar, no, I filed a constitutional petition before the Supreme Court of South Sudan, challenging the SPLM because the SPLM violated the constitutional provision Article 34. Instead of appointing 2 female governors, they appointed all their governors male, which is in violation of 35%, which is a constitutional demand. I filed my case. Up to now, I have not had anything. But the Chief Justice of the country, which is to deliver for us justice, who is the head of the temple of justice, is always in J1. swearing in even committees. The Chief Justice's role is to swear in only the president. He has no business in J1. He is not the commissioner of oath to be loitering in J1. He is not an officer of J1. He must be in the court to fix our courts because he is the head of the court. He is supposed to defend the court. Where there's crisis in the court, he needed to do that. So I wanted us to look at him beyond him being from Warab or beyond tribal. He is the Chief Justice of the Republic of South Sudan, and the office he occupied demands him of a lot. So where I sit, the Chief Justice is not impartial. And in fact, I don't fear. I don't have any fear of contradiction. If there's any reform that needs to be done, I think it is time to tell the Chief Justice. I'm even told he's even beyond the 35 years of retirement. He needs to retire. He has done his job. He needs to retire. We needed to get somebody who will be able to fix our court. We cannot fix our courts if we don't have somebody who will be ready to reform these courts. And I say, the Chief Justice is not a commissioner of oath to loiter around in J1. In fact, the Chief Justice is a very serious office, by the way. So I have mentioned these critical issues that I feel we needed to really do it. Lastly, I appreciate what Agel R said. Lack of institutions in South Sudan is a problem, including the SPLM. I remember having a conversation with one of the SPLM leaders whom I really admire. I like him, Achwil, Comrade Achwil. I like him because sometimes he loves constructive conversation. I had a conversation with him last time. I said, you see, the SPLM is not an institution. There are even appointments that were done outside the SPLM. You see? And those people purport to be the SPLM members. In fact, it reaches to a stage where there are people who are lobbyists, yeah? More stronger than even the SPLM secretariat. You know. So there is need to build institutions to appreciate internal democracy. Now, this issue of numbers, I can summarize by saying this is all geared towards a parliamentary system of government. And this is something that has been argued for many years. I know the likes of Dr. Lamakol is passionate about the parliamentary system of government, where you only elect members of parliament, and the members of parliament will elect the president or the prime minister. In fact, during the peace talks, where I was part of it from civil society, if you look at our position paper civil society, we had asked for a lean government. We said our economy cannot afford a huge government. So we needed a lean government where you only have very few ministers. Because what are these ministers doing? Apart from going to Juba International Airport to welcome the president, they line up there, all of them line up there. I don't know what they're doing there instead of going to fix our food security issues. And when the president's coming back, you see them lining up there. And I'm telling you why they do that is because if they don't go, they will be fired. We needed ministries that are able to deliver services to the people. Being in government is not a favor. It's to serve the people. It's not a political accommodation. But that is the case now. It's about political accommodation. Even us who disagree with the government, you always told, if you want to come back, we shall give you a position. It's not about position. It's about what do you do with that position. So for me, if we're going to go to a parliamentary system, and then the people of South Sudan need to decide in the constitution-making process that we don't want the presidential system, we want a parliamentary system. And for me, also, this one leads to separation of powers. And I like the fact, Major, what you said, the president having power to remove an elected official. And this was a lacuna we had in the previous constitution of 2011. I'm told those of them who going to settle their political scores with certain people. For me, in the new constitution, the president must not have any other power to remove anybody who is elected by the people. The governor must be impeached by the state assembly and then confirmed by the Senate. A member of parliament must be recalled by the people who voted for him. So this business of giving the president more powers to even remove an elected official is the one bring for us crisis. So for me, the question of parliamentary system vis-a-vis a presidential system requires a lot of studies, and this will lead us into the constitution making process. And this also, we needed to look at the national dialogue. What are the things that they have really recommended? And in fact, if you're going to write a new constitution, by the way, even the number of MPs right now, it will reduce.
Wani, can you summarize? There is a clip which we want to play before Agel respond. And in that clip, I think you will find the ideas on whom you should base your argument upon. This clip was an interview which was done by iRadio with the Minister of Information, Michael McQuaid. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So the issue of MPs, we are having 600 MPs because of the agreement. We want to accommodate. We want to accommodate everybody. That's why you're having 600 MPs. But as we go for elections, it will be determined by the different constituencies that we're going to have. Women list, youth list, political parties list, and all these things. So we may not even have the 600 MPs. Or we may have more, I don't know, but that will be determined by the Electoral Commission. My last issue is that we have money, but the problem we have in South Sudan is how do we utilize that money to benefit the people? We have the oil money since, remember very well, the president wrote letters to 75 individuals to return our 4 billion, which was stolen by then. Up to now, nobody has returned even $1. So the issue that we have is not that we don't have this. We have the resources, but the problem is people are looting. You know, in other countries you call it corruption, but ours is not corruption. Ours is looting. Somebody carrying the whole money and take it home. That is looting. Thank you.
Yes,
okay, before you go,
you want to interject before you play the clip?
Yeah, I want to interject that. No, but it's just a few things. I'll just be light with him. You know this issue, this idea that the people don't want the president to, who's the chairman of the SPLM, to remove, for example, governors. That's fine. I understand that. The constitutional order, even if the constitution stops him, the fact that SPLM is a majority in the parliament in the states, the chairman of SPLM can call the caucus in that state parliament, and they can still impeach the governor. So he doesn't have to do it by decree. Okay, just excuse me.
So you still support coke in Juba, and many people don't even buy coke?
So that issue can be fixed in the constitution making process. But the chair of the party that is the majority can impeach anybody he wants. He can induce the state assembly to just impeach the government. When it comes to the issues of system of government, it will come later on when we make the constitution. Whether you want the presidential system, you want collegial presidency, or you want parliamentary system, it will come. But as an SPLM member, I can guarantee you, if it is presidential system, the president of South Sudan will be SPLM. If it is parliamentary system, the prime minister of South Sudan will be SPLM. We don't mind. But we will let the people of South Sudan, when the constitution making process comes, to decide what kind of governance system they want. When it comes to the issue of the Chief Justice, in regard to WOW, it is not true that he attended the rally. It is not true that he was in the plane of the president. He was in his own plane, and the president was in his own plane. Nobody has brought evidence or photos to prove that he was on the same plane with the president. The president took his own presidential plane, and he took a private plane. The normal, he paid his own tickets and he went, like anybody else. The only thing that they were both in WOW. But this idea should not be pushed too far. It takes us away from the fact that we need to initiate judicial sector reform, which I agree with. But we shouldn't take the issue of Chief Justice and WOW as an example of how, there are many other examples they can give, very good examples. I have been in South Sudan, and I've crossed paths with the legal system, especially in the last 3 years that I've been in the market. We have been through a lot of these systems, and there is a lot of things that need to be done. I already have written down in my manifesto the things that need to be done to fix the judicial system. But the issue of WOW shouldn't be blown out. the issue of supplementary budget, the fact that you are in deficit does not stop you from submitting a supplementary budget. What that means is that you will have, if you had, let's say, $1 billion, £1 billion pounds deficit, and you have a supplementary budget of 1 billion, you will have a deficit of 2 billion. So it will only increase the deficit, the deficit, which is not good for the economy. We understand that. But the fact that you have a deficit does not stop you from supplementary budget. Even the American budget is on deficit, but it doesn't stop them from, if there is a crisis that have made the country, it doesn't stop this institution responsible to submit a supplementary budget. The final thing I want to say is the issue of constitution making. Will the SPLM take these issues very seriously? But what people don't understand is that they are putting SPLM between a rock and a hard place. The constitution making process takes at least 3 years. We can, like for example, he was talking about the Kenyan constitution of 2010. It took 2.5 years to make. The constitution of Uganda took 4 years to make. Okay, the constitution making process is similar like the national dialogue process. He understands, he has been in these systems, Wani Michael. It is about you going to the people and asking them about how they want to be governed and how they want the rules to be set. So it follows the same system as the system that was used for national dialogue. If I ask Wani Michael and anybody else who's watching, how long did it take the national dialogue to be concluded? It took 4 years. So constitution making process is more complicated than the national dialogue, because the national dialogue was not people talking to each other. It was just people hearing from the people. What did the people of Equatorial say? They combined it. They had a big one in Juba. What did the people of Barkazal say? They met in Barkazal and the people of Upper Nile. And then their views were brought. But the national dialogue did not take the people of Equatorial to go and listen to people of Barkazal and have dialogue between them. Why do you think we should have parliamentary system? Why do you think we should have a federal system? And what part of federal system? So the constitution making process will be more complicated than the national dialogue, and it will take longer than the national dialogue. But now we have this agreement that are signed by these foreigners, the so-called troika, and then they tell you that all these things can be done in 3 years. But I've always told them that these things cannot be done in 3 years. Our own examples, when we signed CPA, we only had two options, two things. That was they tried to make unity attractive and not the people of South Sudan given a chance to vote. They were given 6 years of interim period. But this agreement that we signed, they always give us 3 years, and they rush people. Because those who are funding these things do not want South Sudan to be stable. They want South Sudan to go the way of DRC so that they can loot the resources of the people of South Sudan. These are not our proper, they are not genuine partners. So the SPLM is caught in the place that if he says, okay, give me 6 years or give me 10 years, where I can do a proper constitution making process, do proper census, give me time, people will say no. When we rush them, they say, no, you have not done the constitution. So it is, we are between a hard place and a rock. There is nothing we can do right. Okay, so you can see in Sudan when we signed the agreement, the election was supposed to be, according to CPA, was supposed to be in 2008. But the election was conducted in 2010. It was delayed for 2 years. Because the things that people thought that would be done from 2005, 2008, people were unable to do them. So the election was pushed to 2010. So some of these agreements sometimes are too ambitious. And that's why national dialogue and roundtable is important, because we need to be realistic with ourselves. National constitution making process to make a permanent constitution, listening to each and every South Sudanese, it will not take you less than 4 years. Let's be honest. Even though you give them extension of another 2 years, the constitution itself, and that's why we're like, okay, if 2 years is the only thing we have, let us not even take the constitution. Let's just amend it and let's go for election. So that the elected parliament and the elected government for 5 years can now have the mandate and the time to be able to write the constitution. But we are not going to be given that. We're not going to do election, and you don't want to give us 6 years to write the constitution. So I still believe that even if we go to around the table, all of us will be there. we will realize, based on the examples of countries around us and across Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and the rest, how long it took them to write constitution, their permanent constitution. Even in 1992, when they first had election, they started writing their multi-party democracy constitution in 1988. They only managed to fix it in 1992. It took them 4 years to change from one-party system of constitution to multi-party democracy constitution when they had the first election in Kenya. So people don't want to give SPLM and the government time to do these documents. They are setting these artificial timelines that don't allow enough space to fix constitution. And when we say, okay, if we don't have time for the constitution, let us just amend it and we go for elections. People like Wani Michael are saying the SPLM does not take constitution very seriously. You see where we're sitting? So these are the things that I just want to respond to him. And you can go ahead and play the video and then we can continue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Agel. Abraham, you can play the clip.
None of the parties had ever been stopped from performing any of its political activities in South Sudan. Probably people are saying so because they are seeing the SPLM all the time appearing there. They appear there because of their activity. If you are dormant, you are not doing anything. Is it our duty to go and wake you up? Hey, get up, go and make a public rally? It is your duty to plan your own public rally, your own activities, and invite the media to attend it for you. And they cover it. After covering it, it is played all over. In case we fail to come up with the constitution in time, we can use the current one and we'll go for elections. Most of the parliamentarians here are not elected. We have 500 and something. Meanwhile, if you add those who were elected, 171, plus those who were in Khartoum, who were 96, these were the elected members only. But the rest were brought by the agreement. Whom do they represent? Do they represent people in which constituencies? We don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Wani Michael, you have heard what Michael McQuay said, and you have heard the response from Agel. Agel believes that all these outstanding issues can still be addressed. Since we still have 18 months to go, they can be addressed. And you said we have money. What I understood between you is that there is no will. And if there is will, all these things can be done even with less than 6 months. The constitution making, the census, and even the reconstitution of the electoral commission body, and even the reform in the judiciary. All this can be done in 6 months if I'm told there is will of all the parties to the agreement. But there is issue here that you need to clarify, Wani Michael. If the SPLM said now that there are things that we need to address, give us another 2 or 3 years to do that. Most of you, especially the all-out groups and you, the activists and many citizens, will say President Kiir has decided to stay in power for life. And now they're saying, let's go for an election. And most of us are saying, no, we shouldn't go for an election. Why are you rushing? Now, SPLM is between hard rock. Kindly, can you clarify that to most of our viewers? Exactly, because SPLM seem to be confused and they are listening to the citizen, what the citizens are saying. And if they go by what the citizen said, then other part of the citizen will say, no, that's not what we want. And if they said, okay, let's go for this, others will say, no, that's not what we want. Kindly give us a clear input in regard to that confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. I am really appreciating the conversation. First of all, I want to respond to that issue of listening to the citizens. If the SPLM is listening to the citizens, we will not be having people who are eating in the garbage, by the way, in Juba. If the SPLM is listening to the people, we will not have people go hungry. 3/4 of our people are hungry. They don't have food. By the way, if you, I'm not in Juba, but I speak to colleagues who are in Juba. By the way, the fundamental issue of people now in South Sudan is not even about the elections. By the way, it's about food. People want to survive. How do you go and tell me about elections when I'm going hungry without food? So this government, SPLM, doesn't listen to people, because if they listen to people, their budget will have resolved issues of high cost of living. I read on the papers where people are surviving food that is thrown in the garbage. So all these years we don't have a government that is listening to us. Everything they do, they impose on the people. So they are not listening to the people. In fact, this issue of election, if you do a survey right now and ask people, what are your issues, your priorities, they will tell you their priorities. And you'll be surprised if an election may not be their priorities, because people want to survive, as I said earlier on. The other day, the whole of Juba, there was no water because the harbors, they were striking. You can't imagine, including J1, our state house, which is supposed to be highly protected, still get water from these water tankers. You see, when we have the River Nile proximity is very near. You see, so they are not listening. They are not listening to the people, because if they're listening to people, they'll be resolving this issue. The other thing that I also want to point out very clearly, if you listen to Agel R very clearly, to Michael McQuay, even the president, the SPLM have inherited this culture of blame games. Now they want to portray that they wanted elections. They want to blame other people for not facilitating elections. But we need to state the facts clear. The people to be blamed why we don't have elections is them. I said very clear that the agreement provided for very clear framework on how we are going to have elections. The constitution making process, it is in the agreement, chapter 6 of the agreement. Very clear. Census is also in the agreement. In fact, it is one of the activities of the article. If you look at the agreement set out very clear priorities for the government to do in a transitional period. But they decided purposely to ignore all those things. You remember, civil society, we raised the concern. They call us that we are noisemakers. But sometimes we raise fundamental issues. So this issue of blame games, blaming people, the SPLM-led government must take responsibility for failing to organize elections in 2024. Why? Because they refused to work on the process that leads us into elections. Coming to the video that you played of Michael McQuay, if my memory can help me well, I can recollect well, there was a time the SPLM complained that their members were chased out in one of the SPLM control areas. I think it could be either Jongule or Unity. I forgot the area. But I'm aware there was that complaint of where SPLM went to an area that is, I think could be a couple. I'm not so sure of the area, but I am sure of these facts that there was a time where SPLM were denied. I have seen statements from SPLM-IO saying they were denied to do political rallies. And let us put this context very, very clear. I wanted Agel Machar to answer me why Dr. Riak cannot even visit his people, whether in Torit or in Rumbek. Since Dr. Riak came to Juba, I think 2020, up to today, Dr. Riak has never stepped out. So if you're going to say that there is people activities are not being stopped, but your own first vice president is not a free man. I really don't think Dr. Riak is contented with the life he's living in. The man cannot move. Since he came to Juba, he remained in Juba. He cannot even go to his home area. You know, I remember there was even a time a presidency resolution was passed for Dr. Riak to visit his cantonment areas. He did not visit. The only place that he went to was the airport to welcome the president. I remember when they opening the bridge. You see, so there is no political space. You see, because if you can hold your own vice president hostage, what about really other people? So unless we reform our security, unless we sensitize them to de-associate from the SPLM, because the problem we have is that people think the army is the SPLM. It is not. Yes, we appreciate during the liberation struggle. These are two. And by the way, Agel Machar, I was young, but I may recall some of these facts. The SPLM was founded on democratic principles. So this narrative of people saying the SPLM is, of course, military and all these things, but the SPLM is founded on democratic principles. That's why you used to have a Congress, if I'm not mistaken. Democracy is not only about elections, by the way. There are so many means of democracy. So one of the pillars of SPLM as a movement, even during that time, was building a democratic institution in South Sudan or in the Sudan. So the concept of democracy is not new to SPLM. And I don't know why you want to really run away from it. If SPLM knew that we are supposed to have a one-party system, they could have.
Thank you. Okay, you have responded to the video. There is something for example, you have said if SPLM was listening to the people, people will not be eating from the garbages in Juba. There are two things to others. I've been to the diaspora. I'm a dual citizen, and I know that from where I come from, the countries that we look up to in terms of democracy and good governance, there are citizens that eat on the garbages in the United States as we speak now. And I can upload, you can Google it. Second thing, the SPLM government ended when they signed the agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan on 28th of August 2015, 8 years ago. The government since 2015 up to now have been government of national unity, not SPLM government. And the failures of those governments, even though the SPLM may be the senior partner, but the SPLM has no say of its own in these governments. Okay, they constitute just over 50%. The rest of nearly 50% is other parties. So let's be realistic. Artigono is different from SPLM. SPLM is just a partner in Artigono. The SPLM government is from 2011 to 2015, 4 years. But after that, it has been Artigono. Even though, yes, I understand that the SPLM is the senior partner, but it has been Artigono. Let's be fair. In that sense, is that the Artigono mandate our implementation of the agreement, which is to transition the country from war to peace, not to feed people or anything else. So it is not, should not be made the SPLM. You must be fair enough and say the Artigono made up of SPLM, made up of SPLM-IO, made up of OPP, made up of SOA, made up of FDs have failed the people of South Sudan. That way I will agree with you. But when you leave everybody else that constitute nearly 50% of the government and you narrow down on SPLM, it shows that you have a particular issue with SPLM, not the government of South Sudan. The last thing to respond to is the issue of Dr. Machar. The SPLM-IO have been establishing their offices across the country, including Kwajok in Warab. They have had their own rallies in blue t-shirts in thousands in motorcycles, and they went there and they established their office right now. They took up their flag there. So the SPLM-IO has not been restricted in Juba. What I don't know, as just an ordinary member of SPLM, is what is happening between the president and his first vice president. And the reason he's not traveling is that I have not even heard from the first vice president himself that he has been restricted. I've not heard from him. I've heard from others like you, and some of the supporters saying why the first vice president doesn't come to us. But I cannot comment on it because they are both my senior comrades. And what is happening between the two of them, I do not know. But what I know is that the party Dr. Machar leads is free to do rallies across the country. And to prove to you is that they have done a rally and opened an office in Warab, which is the epicenter of where Comrade Salva come from. They have done it in Wau, they have done it in Rumbek, and they have done it in Awi. Across Greater Parkazal, they have opened offices there. Yes, there are difficulties. Security sector reforms have not been done. Judicial reform has not been done. Those guys who are opening offices there face a lot of difficulties. I know. But that is the things that we cannot run away from. Every country has gone through this phase. If you are a pioneer of democracy, there are going to be scars. So the IO has certain degree of space to maneuver. Of course, we are going to push, even us as members of SPLM. If we are called to leadership meetings, we will raise our hands and we will tell our leaders, don't be afraid. We, your foot soldiers, will do the work for you. Let others have freedom. Let them have space. So there is nothing wrong with that. What I cannot comment on is why Dr. Machar has not moved from Juba. Whether it is him who's comfortable with the situation or he has been restrained, it has not been clear for me because I haven't heard from him directly and I haven't heard from Comrade Salva in this regard. But his party is free. So if his party is free, why is he not free? What is the difference between, for example, the SPLM leadership, the entire leadership from Deputy, or yet Madam Angelina and the rest going to Upper Nile, for example, to open the SPLM office in Upper Nile, and to Machar going himself? What is the difference? The party is not the chairperson. The party is the entire leadership and the public, the supporters. That's what party is. So I don't want to get bogged down between what is happening between these two senior comrades who are very close to me in different ways. I don't want to comment on what is happening between two of them. But from day one, I've always encouraged them to work together since 2012. Because both of them are very senior members of the SPLM. Actually, they are the chair and deputy chair of the SPLM before it was divided. So I will continue to encourage them not to be the reasons why South Sudan doesn't become viable and doesn't continue to be prosperous. And I think they've done a very good job since 2018. They have done better than 2013. They have done better than 2016. So they're improving. And I hope they continue to work together, give each other political space, give each other the respect they deserve, and make sure that the country is united, because when the two big bulls are not in cohesion, the rest of the country shakes. But when they work together, it allows the rest of us, me and Michael, Wani Michael, and the rest from the SPLM juniors, to make sure that we keep our country together and solve our issues. This interview is a testament to the fact that me and you agree on most things. If you actually look at the things you say and the things I say, there is no difference. There's no much difference. It's just like we just need to rise above our short-sighted individual interest and put the interest of the country before us. And it's very easy for young generation to always do this. And that's how our country has always moved forward, is that the young generation is always more united, more patriotic, and more energetic than the older generation. Starting from 1953, 55, to meeting in Torit on August 18th. That generation, the next generation of those of Joseph Lago, was better than the other generation. Those of Anyanchu were better than those of SPLM, and that's why the country, we are moving forward. So I'm happy that we have shared this. We are now approaching 2 hours. I hope that this is the last interjection. I will give you a chance to say it, but I think that we have had enough so far. And we will leave it.
You cut. Agel, you cut me short even. I was still responding, so I was even cut short. And I think I even in 2 minutes.
I need to say, and now you have the floor. You can finish it.
Yeah, I needed to finish certain things. I just in 2 minutes. I think we need to be sincere to ourselves. Agel Machar, you are aware that the president, who is your chairman of SPLM, rejected the SPLM-IO nominee for governor of Upper Nile, the guy who is now in Juba, General Johnson Ulon, which was not provided for in the agreement. You know very well that the SPLM decided to remove the Minister of Defense, which issue is still not even resolved from the SPLM. And if you read the report from RGM, you will see where your party, the SPLM-IG, removed of officials from other parties and put somebody from the SPLM. I remember very well, there is a video clip where Michael McQuay, government spokesperson, said, and it's on record, that even the president can fire the, the first vice president. You see? So this is a situation we are in. And I worry when I listen a young man like you who has a very clear political future to reduce the country to two individuals. I worry for my country. I do not want in future South Sudan is discussed between individuals. We are a country of over 12 million people who must have a stake in their own affairs of the country, and that's the problem we have in South Sudan, which we don't want to admit, which the National Dialogue pointed out very clear. People pointed out clearly. We want to live in a life where few individuals, our survival is put within two individuals. No, South Sudan must live without even me and you, Agel Machar. There must be South Sudan. There will be South Sudan after President Kiir and Dr. Riek. By the way, it doesn't mean that if they go, the country will go. The country is here to stay. All of us one day will leave this world, but a country called South Sudan will live until the time when Jesus comes back. So, and then the issue of listening to the citizens, I will want to advise my good friend and the SPLM, is that every time you are on a public forum, you remind us of the liberation. I want to tell you, people don't eat liberation now. People want to hear where are the hospitals, you know? Yes, you can lecture us about the liberation. Yes, we appreciate, but people want to hear where is the food. Is it? It's no longer the time. It is no longer. It used to be. I remember when I was a kid in 1993 or 1994 in Oleji, when Dr. John came and lectured us about the movement. It's no longer like that. Even Dr. John, by the way, he said it very clear. He said that the movement itself will only deliver when it's able to provide salt to the people. When it's able to provide medicine, you know, to the people. Failure to do that, people will pack SPLM and throw SPLM into the river. So the narrative have changed, and that's why I'm saying SPLM is de-associating itself from the real issues that are affecting the people. I wanted you to come and tell us one day, what are you doing as a movement, as a ruling party, because you are the majority in the government. The president comes from the SPLM, who enjoys a lot of powers in the constitution, to tell us how I'm dealing with these issues. I already told you. I know I am not in Juba, but I have friends. I have so many family people who live in Juba. Agel, go and tell your SPLM that people are hungry. People want food before you talk about the elections. People want clean drinking water. People want the health centers. The Juba Teaching Hospital should be linked to Juba Teaching Hospital. You cannot imagine even Juba Teaching Hospital is built by the Chinese. Is it? And we are pumping oil. There is oil money. So people are angry with the SPLM. I watched a video of one of the old man, which is my last comment. One of the old comrades who joined the movement when he was 10 years. And he said tears. He said, this is not the SPLM that we fought for. And I can tell you, if the SPLM of 1983 is to meet you guys now, I guarantee you, we must make another peace talks. Because all the promises that you guys did for the people, you have failed. You have failed to deliver on the promises that you gave to the people. So for me, moving forward, the way forward, moving forward is that listen to the people. Listen to the people. The priority I'm telling you right now is not election. It's about food. First, making people satisfied. Don't continue to fire. Don't continue to fire ministers of finance. They will never resolve our economical crisis. You need to ensure that we fix the economy with a very good policies, with very good plans. But firing ministers of finance left and right will never resolve our issues. We need to boost productivity. I have been very vocal on this issue. We need to build infrastructure that lead us to the food basket. You can even imagine we are importing toilet papers, toothpicks, everything we are importing. Now, how do you stabilize an economy where you import everything? We must boost our local production. Western Equatoria is producing enough food. The Yei area. But the problem is what? Roads. We don't have good roads. So we must boost productivity. Bring the conversation of Pula Dam. I don't know why the SPLM government is worried of constructing that dam, so that we are able to build industries to employ young people. We have so many young people who are unemployed. Diversify the economy. Don't focus on oil. You see, these are basic economics. You see, so for me, these are the issues that we need to be talking about. In conclusion, I will say this. That I want to vote as a citizen. I want to vote. It's because it's my constitutional right. But I wanted my vote to count. In Africa, we are now having two coups, by the way. We have institutional coup, and that's what SPLM is trying to do. They want to use election to make a coup against us. In Africa, they say it's not you who vote that counts. It's the person who count the vote and announce the winner. Don't get surprised when that we shall have results out before even people going to vote. So for me, I want to vote in a process where my vote will count. That I have voted for Agel Machar, and that vote of mine has counted. But I don't want to go to a process whereby I'll be told you must vote for Agel Machar, and they add more ballots. They rob the winners. Lastly, we need to be worried as South Sudanese. History sometimes repeats itself again. Remember in 2010, what happened in Jongole? When the late Jojiator and General, now he's a General, David Yao Yao, when they were robbed, because we didn't have court, what happened? They went to the bush. I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but if you are to have election in 2024 next year, I can guarantee you the first split will be in the SPLM, because primaries of the governor and MPs where you guys are going to split in, because in 2010 also it really happened. And what bothers me is that if, for example, my votes have been robbed, what do? There is no court that I can go to. What do? I mobilize my people and said they have stolen our votes. We pick our few guns, we go to the bush. So these are also things that we need to look at. We need to prepare ourselves and do civic education. If you know you are not contented with the results, you go to court. You don't pick your guns and go to the bush. Thank you.
Thank you, Wani, Michael, and
Abraham.
Yeah, you will come. Agel, I have we ran out of time. I have a follow-up question to you, Wani. My follow-up question to you, Agel, is you heard what Honorable Michael Mulua say about the election campaign. My question to you: will the government allow the political parties for free space for campaigning in the country? That question go to you, Agel. And my question go to you, Wani. Wani, you talk a lot about roundtable, you know, and roundtable. And I have 4 questions here from the speakers that I would like to pull up so you can see them. You talk a lot about roundtable. My question to you: what is the difference between roundtable, national dialogue, and roadmap? What's the difference here? And also, roundtable, where will the roundtable will take place? Will roundtable will take place in Juba or outside the country? And the second question that go to you, Wani, you complain about the ship justice, go to WOW. And also too, as you know, the rally that SPLM done in WOW was not like a campaign rally. And it's not even an election season yet. Why is it the opposition making a very had as their argument, talking point, or political agenda, it's not even election yet. And I hear a lot of opposition complaining that even the election will take place, the election will be rigged because Chief Justice is supporting President Salva Kiir. We have 18 months left before the election. Why is it people are taking this as a election will be rigged before even election? Why people are very concerned on that? The opposition definitely. And those questions I will pull it up from the audience on the line. This question go to you, Wani. Albino Noon is asking you, Wani, if you can write them down and then you can respond. We citizens of South Sudan are confused of what Wani Michael is. Is he activist or a rebel? Kindly let him tell us what he do best. That's the first question. Second question coming from Victor. He said, Wani Michael, have you ever put up waiting to cast your vote? The third question comes the same person. Second question, have you yourself by the chance ever be a participant writing the national constitution? And the final question coming from Mawian. Mr. Wani Michael, second the idea of the round table, but who are to organize for the round table discussion? So those are the questions. Go to you, 4 of them. So we have 15 minutes to wrap up the conversation. So I will yield my microphone back to you.
I don't know. I will do 5 minutes and let Michael do 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, that would
okay. Now, the issue of the free space, the SPLM has already shown that other political parties can have their activities. I've already given you the main rival of SPLM is SPLM-IO. In other words, the biggest rival of SPLM is another SPLM. And they have been allowed to establish their offices across the country, including Warab State. So the SPLM has shown indication that they are willing to give space for this thing to happen. It is not as free as the United States, okay, or the United Kingdom, but it is free within the context of South Sudan. The roundtable, the SPLM will be very happy for the roundtable to be conducted in our own country so that we can cut out the middlemen, because the middlemen have their own interest. There is no middleman that will come between two people without having their own personal interests. They cannot use their own money for free. There is no free lunch in international politics. So the better, the more you want to dialogue between your own brothers in your own house, the better. Even within you and your wife, if you allow others to get in between solving your problems, there's going to be another interest involved. So we want the location to be in South Sudan. When it comes to the issue of that, Wani Michael has spoken in regard to the SPLM not providing prosperity, you have to understand that the SPLM in 2011, after fighting for 21 years and leading the people of South Sudan through 6 years of interim period, raised the flag and provided them with the freedom, which was their #1 expectation. In 2012, the SPLM found itself at war footing with its usual enemy in the north. The oil had to be shut down because of theft, and people had to go to war over Hijilich, contested area. And somebody who is at war, even if Wani Michael was made the president today and was faced with issues that face SPLM in 2012, he would concentrate on making sure that that enemy that has been enslaving my people for 200 years is put to rest. So in 2012, there was nothing SPLM could do. Came to 2013, the SPLM was forced to prepare for 2015 election, which I thought that election was too quick, because I thought SPLM would have been given 2011 to 2021, 10 years to prepare the country for election. But anyway, people said election must be conducted every 5 years according to former constitution of Sudan. And if the election were conducted in 2010, the next one must be conducted in 2015. It was a wrong decision altogether, because we shouldn't be tied down by the constitution of the old Sudan that we fought for 21 years, or even for 49 years since 1955. So we should have set our own interim period. We should have said from 2011 to 2021, you, the SPLM, fight the permanent constitution, do proper census, establish institution of nation and state building, institution of democratization, democratize their own parties, and open the space for election in 2021. I believe right now we would be having a democratically elected government, but the SPLM was rushed. I'm happy that those are Michael Wani are now thinking that rushing elections is not good. So prosperity could not come in 2012 because the SPLM was still fighting Sudan. In 2013, because of the election that was imposed on quick elections, the SPLM did not have the institution to manage competition for power. Crisis came in 2013. In 2015, they signed the Agreement of National Unity. From there on, it is not the work of SPLM. It is the work of unity, Government of National Unity, okay, which started from 2015, 2016 to 2018. Another one started from 2018 up to now. So whether things are going correctly or not, I understand that the Tigono is tasked with the implementation of the agreement. That's the first priority. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, up to Chapter 6. Okay? And that is reform and preparing the country to be prosperous. If anything has gone wrong here, and if you don't believe that Tigono's task is not what you are talking about, then you need to blame the Tigono as a whole, not the SPLM. And that's why the SPLM is saying, since even in a united government, even in a government of national unity, you still think that we are the ruling one, we are going to elections in December 2024, so that we can have government of our own for the next 5 years. So that we can show you that we are not failures, that there's a reason why we took you for 21 years of liberation, 6 years of interim period, gave you freedom. And even though we have not been given a chance from 2012, 2013, and from 2013 to 2023, 2024, we want to end this. We want to have election, ask the people of South Sudan to give us the mandate to rule by ourselves. So that when we speak in 2025 and 2026, with those of Wani Michael, I will be able to be answerable. If Wani Michael tells me in 2026 and said, Agel Machar, you were elected entirely in 2024. You have had 2025 as a whole, you have 2026. We are now speaking in 2026 December. What have you done in 2 years? I will be able to answer. Right now, I have not answered because there are things. There is Juba Bor Road, there is feeder roads, the number of hospitals. Even when they say Chinese did not build the hospital out of charity. It is because Chinese are in partnership with the government of South Sudan in the oil industry. Okay, we have had the number of schools that have increased. You can go to your own villages. Ask yourself how many schools were in your own county in 2005 and how many schools are there now. How many students in private schools were in schools in 2004 before the SPLM came, and how many students are there right now. I don't want to speak about those things. I want us to be given a mandate for 5 years, and I know the people of South Sudan will give us the mandate. And then after 3 or 4 years, ask me why that you have been given this mandate. You are 100% or 90% government, and you did not do one thing, and I will answer you correctly. But you will say that SPLM is not good, and if I ask you now, what is the alternative? You are going to struggle with this answer, because the alternative is not there. And even this government of national unity, you see, there are different factions of SPLM. It's the SPLM IG, SPLM IO, SPLM FDs. Even this SOA, the key members like those of Bakasoro, the SPLM. So you cannot say that you want to get rid of a status quo so that you can bring in somebody who you don't even know. That's why I'm telling you, it took Kenya 29 years. It took Museveni 20 years. It took Ethiopia 50 years. It took Tanzania over 30 years. For you to be able to cultivate a change, you need time. We need to give ourselves time. But we don't want to give ourselves time. So SPLM said, okay, if me asking for time has become a problem, okay, let's cut out the time. Let's just concentrate on these few things that will prepare us for election. And let's do election in 18 months. Now, no. We don't want to do elections. And that's why we are confused. And that's why somebody like me is here. I want to hear from you. And I will go to every website, to every show. And I want to hear, even if Thomas Shirilo called me on the phone, I will go to where he is. I will fly to where he is. I want to hear from him. Don't tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you want. All of us can talk about, I don't like this, but what is it that you want? As the people of South Sudan, where we find ourselves in history, what is it that we can do? Even if we go to dialogue, round table, can you tell me the agenda of the round table? You are intelligent enough. Can you predict? You can go into a meeting and you can predict the outcome. What do you think if Comrade Selfa Machar, and all in the who are now in the Tigono, Tigono, and those of Paganamom, Thomas Chirilo, Malongawan, and the rest are all brought. Comrade Wani Michael is brought, Agel Machar is brought. What do you think will be the outcome? What is the alternative? What would you put on the table? Some people are saying technocratic government. So who is this technocrat? Who is the technocrat? A PhD holder teaching in Oxford University? I mean, who is this person that knows about South Sudan more than Comrade Salfa, that has been there from 1983 and beyond in Yalawan? Who knows about the issues of South Sudan better than Wani Michael? Who knows about issues of South Sudan other than Kolmanya? I mean, what will the roundtable be? Let's envision it. Let's visualize it and vision that roundtable is happening in Juba, in Freedom Hall. What will come? It will still come back to the fact that SPLM has to be given time to fix the institutional capacity of the country to be viable. Be it democratic institution, be it accountability institution that will stem corruption, be it the constitution that will manage what the referee can do. All these things need time. And the SPLM was not given time from 2011. 2012 was dealing with Sudan. 2013, crisis. And it has been crisis ever since 2023. When was SPLM given a time to fix the institution that can build a state and a nation? And that's why we are saying, if we are not going to be given a chance, let us take this referendum to the people of South Sudan in December 2024. And let them decide. If they say there is somebody else who can transition them, we'll go home. We're going to take care of our cattle, so whatever it is, your farm. And if they give us the mandate, we want people to give us a chance for the next 5 years to fix the country and permanently build the foundation for a stable and viable country into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Gel. Welcome, Wani.
Thank you so much. You know, the SPLM has been parading this narrative that of the young nation. I think recently we already have a new young nation, so we should abandon the issue of a young nation. And I wanted to remind my brother Agel Machar that the SPLM came to power through the CPA in 2005. So you are 18 years in power. Because remember, under the CPA we are semi-autonomous. We are running our affairs in the south. So based on our constitution,
let me interrupt you. The 2005 mandate for SPLM was freedom. And for 6 years,
even if no, but
freedom.
I gave you the chance. Remember, after the CPA, we had the GOS, the government of Southern Sudan, if I'm not mistaken. What was it? It was semi-autonomous government. President Kiir was the president of the government of Southern Sudan. So you started governing us since 2005. When we lost our hero, the late Dr. John. You kept on asking me, what do we want? Personally, what do I want as a citizen? For me, my work that I've been doing, and most people are privy to these facts, the source that I yearn for, the source that I want, power must be given to the people. People must have the power to decide what to do with their country. But that is not the case. I have listened to you in the conversation entirely. You have never mentioned about giving power to the people. Because the SPLM think there are senior citizens more than the other citizens. The Constitution does not anticipate that. The Constitution does not provide for senior citizens. The Constitution says everybody is equal before the law, including the president. So I will want to have a South Sudan where power is with the people. People decide who should be the president, who should be the MP, who should be the governor, not through presidential decree. That is read on SSBC every time, and every week we have a order. Governors are removing people, commissioners, and the mess continues. So that is where I sit. The fight some of us are fighting for is that South Sudan must be democratic and power is given to the people and people decide through a democratic process that counts. We do not want to go to a process to synthesize and legitimize the regime. Because what is happening is that the SPLM-led government, because whether you like it or not, everybody is SPLM. There's SPLM IG, there's SPLM IO. The other day I saw Dr. Martin was in another SPLM rally in his home area. So almost everybody is SPLM, but they only put on color of other parties. Most of them originated from the SPLM. So it is important to state that fact. Now, I wanted to talk about issues of the round table, because I know people have misconceived some of us to say we are rebels. I am not a rebel. I have been accused of being a NAS because I am an Equatorian. I have never spoken to Thomas Cyril. I even don't know where he is. I am not a member of NAS. And that's the problem we have in South Sudan. Even when I was in Juba, that was a problem. People think I was a member of NAS. I have never been a member of NAS. I have never, by the way, it is not a secret. I can
testify that you're not a member of NAS from the.
Yeah, I have never carried a gun in my whole life.
No, you're not.
Is it?
Yeah,
I have never carried a. Yes, I have never carried a gun in my whole life, and it's a fact, and I don't hide it. I have never carried a gun in my whole life, and I do not want. I don't believe in violence. And that is my personal belief. That's why when I fundamentally disagree with the government, I decided to leave the country. And I've never joined any rebel group. You will never find my name in any rebel group. I have always been using my voice to speak on issues. I will never ever use violence. I will never in my life use violence, because I believe everything must be done through a non-violent means. So I am not a rebel. I am a citizen who is very much concerned about his country and want the best for his country. The question about round table, and this narrative that everybody will talk about round table is a rebel. We are not rebels. We want the best for our country. We need to ask ourselves, how did we reach to this round table? We reached to this round table because the Artigono, let me use the Artigono, which consists of all the parties. The Artigono failed to implement the agreement. Remember, they were given 8 months to implement pre-transitional activities. They failed to do it. They were given another 3 months to implement the pre-transitional activities. They could not implement. They were given another 100 days. They could not implement. They were given 36 months to implement transitional activities. They could not. When they were asking for extension of 2 years, they only implemented less than 30%. I think it will be either 20-something % of the activities. For all these months that I have been counting, they only implemented less than, I think it should be 23 or 24, 25 there, % of the activities. So some of us have been saying, if these people can take this long, 8 months, 3 months, 100 days, 36 months, 24 months, they could not implement even 50% of the agreement. What miracle do you need that must fall from heaven for these people to take us to elections? So we are saying the reason why we are having a round table is because the Artigono failed to implement the agreement. Because the Artigono does not have the political will to implement the agreement. Their fundamental activity is the implementation of the agreement, but they have purposely decided to neglect these activities. That's why we are in this crisis. If the Artigono would have done things the way they agreed, and by the way, they were not forced. I was part of the peace talks in Addis Ababa and in Khartoum. I challenged somebody to say this article was forced on us. It wasn't forced. Instead, it was forced on us civil society because we were against so many things. But they told us we don't carry guns. For them who carry guns, they're the one to decide. So nobody imposed this agreement on them. They agreed by themselves to expand the government. You remember the committee led by the Honorable Mayom. And I think Mayom, the former Minister of Interior. I think, yeah, if I remember his name well.
Paul Mayamachi.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yes, Paul Akej. You remember the committee led by him? They came with a very big government, expanded the government. When we raised the issue in Juba, we said we don't have the money, we don't have resources. Michael Makwe told us we want to include everybody. We have the money. We have the money to fund the government. Even when we're in Addis, even when we're in Khartoum, the government kept on saying we have the money to fund the agreement. Now, when the time came for implementing the agreement, there is no money. So we reached to this round table because of the failure of the article not to implement the agreement. So now we are in crisis. What do we do? Unless somebody say we needed a military coup, like what is happening now in Niger. Yeah. Maybe somebody is saying that, but some others are saying, can we have a roundtable discussion? Can we have a roundtable discussion and discuss the future of South Sudan beyond individuals? You had Machar kept on saying names, throwing names here and there, is it? But the fact is that South Sudan must move forward, whether we like it or not. Must move forward. I have no problem if SPLM win the election, free and fair elections. I will clap my hand and I congratulate them and say, I congratulate my brother Machar for being elected as a new government. But I cannot congratulate him if I see he has robbed the people of their victory. So the issue of roundtable is not something that just come out of the blue. We are trying to resolve a crisis. So you have to bring everybody on board to be able to discuss. And the agenda for me, where I sit, must be very clear. It's not about sharing power. The agenda must be, how do we prepare the country for elections? How do we write a constitution? For a people constitution, how do we do census? If there is no census, what do we do? How do we put money to institutions to organize the election? This must be the round table discussions. It's not about sharing power with Kir, because I know that's when SPLA now, they will open their eyes. If you talk about power sharing, they start opening their eyes. Because they think all of us want power to be part of the government. We don't want to be a part of the government. If the round table discussion said, okay, President Kir, lead us for this period of time, but the mandate is that we are focusing on elections. I gave you an example. If you are serious with the elections, why do you give the Electoral Commission under 200 million, and you are giving Ministry of Roads over 400 billion? You see? As I speak to you right now, I saw it in the news. Uganda is already preparing for elections, which is happening in 2026. The Electoral Commission already issued a roadmap, something which is still, they still have about 2 years. Now they started preparing now. But you are telling us that we start preparing next year for election to be done next year also. So for me, we needed to discuss South Sudanese. The issue of the venue, of course, we cannot go to Juba without proper arrangement. Some of us, we have treason charges on us, charges that are not even founded in the law. We are just charged because we spoke our minds. So what security guarantee do some of us have if you come to Juba? There is a trick where you go to Juba and you cannot get out. You see? You go to Juba and you know, like what one time the boss of Machar, Agel Machar said that one of the leader was parked in South Africa, that the bulb with a tear, he has to be gotten from somewhere. You see? So I do not want, we don't want to go to Juba and we get parked there. You are put under house arrest, under a funny house arrest that you don't even understand. I wanted to go back to my country, and my constitutional right must be protected by the state and must be guaranteed by the state. Lastly, somebody asked whether I have ever voted. By the way, during the referendum, I was in Yei, and I led the students in Yei, and those who were there before during the referendum, they will testify to this, that I led students in Yei to do voter education, to mobilize people to vote. So I have voted before. I have voted during the referendum. I have voted in 2010 elections. I have been voting in schools when I was in school. So yes, I have been voting. About the constitution making process, yes, I want to participate. I'm a citizen. I want to participate. In fact, this is an area where I want to tell Junubin is an area of focus. We must write a constitution that addresses our issues. We must have a constitution that people will own. The same way like in the CPA. One time I went to some village in Wow. I was surprised to see an old man lecturing me about the CPA protocol, the Machakos and all these protocols. That's the constitution we need. It must be people-centered constitution. I look forward to a situation where people will say, this is our constitution. And telling the government that what you are doing is unconstitutional. It is illegal. And that should be the focus. If we are going to go for federal system of government, what federal system of government are we going for? If we are going to go presidential or parliamentary, I told you that earlier, I am passionate about age limits and term limits. Because one of the issues that is causing coups in Africa is because you have leaders who want to stay in power. So I wanted the constitution must define the powers. There must be separation of powers. I don't want, again, in future to have a president who can fire everybody, including justices of the Supreme Court, including elected leaders. There must be clear separation of powers in the constitution, and an independent institution must be protected by the constitution. I want to give you an example. Do you know that the Minister of Justice is a chief prosecutor? Where on earth do you have a politician being a chief prosecutor of government? In many countries, the Department of Public Prosecution is independent from the Minister of Justice, but that's not the case. So, for example, if the Minister of Justice is accused on corruption issues, who is going to prosecute him? Is it? The Minister of Justice is the Attorney General. So if the issue is in the court, he has to go. He has to go to the court. No. These are constitutional matters that we really need to address as a country. So it is not about election. For me, my focus, we must write a constitution that speaks to our issues, that separate our issues. Because the 2013 conflict we had was also emanating from the constitution that we had. Because the president had so much powers that he can fire everybody and hire everybody. That's why we're having 10 ministers, ministers of finance. This I did the research today. I found out that since July 2011, South Sudan we had about 10 ministers of finance. Uganda, that we make reference to, they only have 2. Since 2011 up to today, they had 1 and they changed now. They're only having 2. Kenya, that during the time of Moi Kibaki to Uhuru Kenyatta, now to Ruto, there are about I think about 3 or 4, about 4 ministers of finance, and you never know. Maybe before this year ends, we shall have another minister of finance or the governor of central bank. You don't find that anywhere where you change ministers of finance and governors, and permanent secretaries. No, the secretary to the treasury, you change them every time, and it doesn't happen like that because you need to give them time to fix certain things. So for me, the way forward is that, and I want to thank Lake State, and I look forward for other invitation. I'm very much ready for that. The government must listen to the people. That is the first message. Is that government must listen to the people and address the priorities of the people. You are spending a lot of money on endorsement. Sorry, I forgot the question on endorsement. That is, it is not election. So what is it? You are endorsing President Kiir for what? It was very clear. Even the memo was read in Wow. If I wasn't mistaken, that the Greater Baragazal, SPLM, caucus, whatsoever you call it, have endorsed President Kiir as the SPLM presidential candidate. If I'm not mistaken. The Equatorians are already organizing theirs, I don't know when, to endorse President Kiir as the presidential candidate. So the endorsement is already a campaign. Because you can see Agel Machar putting on the cap, on the clothes, he was in Wow, mobilizing people, moving around in Wow, and people footing from Will, very hungry, others were knocked on the road, but you have people who chartered plane, miserable people. Others who could walk from a Will to Wow, but others are taking flight from Juba properly fed, sleep in good hotels in Wow, and you make people work without food, without water. You see these things. So listen to the people, the cry of the people. And I wanted to tell the article is that the priority right now, yes, the election is there, but that's not the fundamental issue now. Cost of living is very high. Address that issue of cost of living. Instead of using that money for those rallies, you're spending millions of money on those rallies. Address these issues of cost of living. People are eating food from the garbage. Families are going hungry every day without food. So I will want to end. I will want to end by saying that I look forward for another debate. But for me, the way forward is roundtable, and we decide. The roundtable must be inclusive of whole out group, the government in Juba, the civil society, the religious leaders, and other stakeholders must be involved in this roundtable. And then he mentioned the issue of a mediator, a third party, that you don't want a third party. So who is going to mediate the process? Because there are going to be a lot of conflicting ideas. So you need a third party.
Okay.
There must be agreement on a third party. Thank you.
Okay. I'm about to go ahead.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
just saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying there are things that affect the SPLM that I have to respond to. Number one is the issue of endorsement of our chairman. People are saying that is a violation of the electoral processes. That before the declaration of campaign, you shouldn't be endorsing people. Now, the endorsement by a party that in case the election happens, whether it happens in 5 years or 10 years or in 100 years, our decision is that if that election comes, our flag bearer will be Comrade Salva Kiir Mahdi. That is not campaign. Okay? Right now, the electoral process in America has not started, but it has not stopped the Republican Party from declaring that they want to be flag bearers of the Republican Party. Okay? But eventually there's a process, there's a time when the election will be declared, where the current president, Joe Biden, will be going for campaign. Right now, Joe Biden is not going for campaign because the campaign has not been declared. But it has not stopped the Republican Party from juggling for who is going to be the flag bearer. So a particular party saying that we want our flag bearer to be Comrade Selfa, for example, because the extension will end in 18 months. It does not mean that everybody else is campaigning. For example, myself, I have not declared what I want. The governors have not declared. It is a party saying that we feel, regardless of when the election campaign will begin or when the election will be done, if you want to do it in 1 year, fine. If you want to do it in 2 years, fine. If you want to do it in 3 years, fine. If you want to do it in 8 years, we have recommended, the NLC has recommended. Remember, the real endorsement comes from the convention. The SPLM has not called its convention because they have not, the election process has not officially started. But when the process starts, the SPLM has to call its convention, where the official endorsement of who is the flag bearer will be cemented. This is the NLC, National Liberation Council, that is a second highest authority giving its views. These are people of Barakazal giving their views, people of Equatoria giving their views. But the real legal endorsement comes from the convention. And SPLM has not called its convention. The SPLM will call its convention around the same time when other parties will be calling their convention in preparation for the elections. So there is nothing that has been done. People are just scared by the fact that the SPLM went so much red in WOW, and that red has just terrorized those who do not like red. But they have not broken any law. You know, there are other governors that also wanted to be nominated and so forth. And Comrade Salfa came out and wrote a decree as a chairman saying that you guys have to stop this because it is not its time. So Comrade Salfa is in charge of the fact that he wants to obey the law, because when he was sworn in to protect the constitution of the Republic of South Sudan. And he tried his best to do that. So when it comes to these issues of WOW, don't let WOW and whatever is going to happen in Juba for Equatoria and whatever happened in Bor or Malakal for Upper Nile make you believe that the SPLM has jumpstart the issues of the election. Okay? The issue of the election, by the time you see the SPLM constitute its convention, okay? And whatever comes out of convention, that is now the legal. If the convention is conducted in Juba, which will be the third SPLM convention, the first was in 1994 in Chukudum, the second was in 2008 in Juba. The third convention, when you hear the third convention, is when the SPLM is now gearing itself for election. Whatever is happening now is an internal issue of the SPLM. It has nothing to do with the Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan. That's all I wanted to say in what he has said. Other than that, I agree with him in the fact that the country may not be ready for elections, but we in the SPLM are ready for election. Whether the country is ready or not, that's not the issue for the SPLM. It is the issue for the country as a whole, of all the political forces, civil society, to discuss whether the country itself is ready for election or not. That's up to them. But we, the one who are red, we want to tell you that we feel like everything can be done before 2024, and we can actually take the country for election. But we are not going to dictate. We are just going to give our views, and if people think that they need a roundtable, I have a feeling, I'm not endorsed by the SPLM, but I have a feeling that our leadership will be able to look into the issue. If you want partial election, they can do it. If you want an extension, they can do it. I have a feeling that we can talk to our leaders and they can listen to us. So I'm an ordinary member of the SPLM. Oh, no authority, no position in the party, no position in government. I'm an ordinary member of the SPLM, telling you that my party, from my view, using my IQ, political IQ, the party is ready for election and ready to win the election. But if the country says we need roundtable, we will attend the roundtable. The same way we have been attending all these peace talks in Addis, in Nairobi, in Arusha, in Khartoum, in Italy. So we have never, these forums, there is no forum we have never attended. If the next forum is a roundtable in Juba with mediators in there, fine. We don't mind about that. If the issue is what others have been saying about partial election, and that's what the majority of people of South Sudan want, we are willing to do so. That's what we are saying. So let's continue with the dialogue. Let's continue to think and rethink and talk until our leaders, until we reach a consensus and our leaders understand clearly, regardless of the political divides, that the people of South Sudan have reached a consensus and this is what they want as a way forward. Thank you. This is my last.
Thank you. So again, before you can put on your last word in 1 minute, and then I move to Wani, so Wani can put in the last one, and then we close down the show.
Go ahead.
I say go ahead and put on your last word.
Those are my last words.
Okay, Wani, Fadol, put in your last word. Wani, can you hear me?
Thank you. I first of all, I want to thank the Lake State media for inviting me. I think this is to be honest, this is my first time being on live on Facebook since I left Juba in 2021. I have never appeared. I have been hosting, of course, Twitter space. I have been on and other spaces, but I've never been on a Facebook live. So I want to thank Lake State Media for inviting me for this very important conversation with my brother, Agel Machar, whom I have so much respect for, and I love the fact that he debates with decorum and respect, and this is the South Sudan we want. We can differ in ideas, we can differ in politics, we can have different political affiliations and belongings. At the end of the day, we are South Sudanese, and that's that's the first thing. Before you become an SPLM, you are a South Sudanese. So I really want to appreciate this kind of discourse, and I want to encourage the Lake State media to continue with this kind of conversation. It's very, very important to inform our citizens and also to ensure that we are able to reach to as many people as we can. I think my concluding remarks is that based on the conversations that we had here and based on the comments, I also tried to peruse through the comments. It is very clear that the country is not ready for elections, and the factors that made them not to be ready for elections are things that are known. And I also wanted to emphasize the fact that the reason why we are not having election is not because people don't want to vote. In fact, people want to vote, including myself. But it's the failure of the Artigono to facilitate that process. They failed to implement the agreement. We'll have been hosting this event, talk about the manifesto of the SPLM and other parties who could be discussing into depth how their manifesto can be implemented and all these things. But we are still not talking about whether we shall have election or not. You know, so we cannot even have time to interrogate their policies and their manifestos and what they want to do. So I think moving forward, I think it's also a soul searching period for us as South Sudanese. Whether this is a country we want for ourselves and for our children, because some of us already, for us, we are old. Whether this is a country we want to live for our children or we want to live for them a better country. I really look forward to a country where, and I keep telling colleagues, I said, I move forward to have a South Sudan where people can go to the Minister of Interior and peacefully protest and say, there's insecurity in our area and nobody victimize you. I look forward that people can go to the media and speak their minds and say, we have issues here. And instead of government oppressing them, or suppressing them, government give them ears to listen, because the government is there because of the people. So as we have this debate on election, no election, is very clear that it is not possible to have election next year. In fact, inside stories coming from government is that already that discussion of extension is already ongoing in the government of how to extend the agreement. But for us, we are saying that is not the solution. The solution is that there must be a round table to discuss the future of South Sudan. And that round table discussion must focus on how do we organize the country for elections? How do we put these infrastructures in place? How do we provide resources for the National Election Commission to do its activities to organize elections? How do we provide resources to the National Constitutional Review Commission to organize the constitutional making process? How do we provide resources to the Bureau of Bureau of Statistics that will do for us the census? So we must have a conversation on that. So I really look forward for a lot of this kind of conversation, and I want to thank the colleagues who have been following this from the beginning for about going to 3 hours. And as I said, I think a lot of people have been waiting for this debate, for this conversation between me and my colleague. But I also wanted to make things clear from my side is that I have no issues with the president. I have no issues with President Kiir. That's why you never find me talk about his personal issues. He will never find me talk about his personal issues. I have problem with the way he's governing the country. I have problem with President Salva Kiir. I have no problem with Salva Kiir as an individual. I have problem with the way the Artigono is governing the country, and our fundamental differences. And I believe that those fundamental differences shouldn't victimize anybody. As I said earlier, the Constitution guaranteed those freedoms of freedom of expression. And by the way, the SPLM went to the bush to fight for our freedom, for rights. In fact, is the core fundamental issue why the SPLM took arms against the dictatorial regime. Now we are having a government again who is telling us you don't talk. If you talk, you are taken somewhere or you have to leave the country. This is not the country we fought for. So I look forward that as we talk about election, as we talk about constitution, the government must open the political and civil space. Junubin must be allowed to voice their concern. Those who are very hungry, and I love what the soldier did. The soldier decided to name his son. I think I don't know. I think it's a son. No money, that led to the firing of somebody. So people are going to put names, and I will give names. There is no food, there is no water. So all those things are going to come because people are frustrated. My only appeal to the government: please listen to the people, because somebody who is very hungry and very angry is difficult to contain. You can contain Wani Michael, but when people are very angry and very annoyed, and very hungry, it is not easy. We have seen what is going on in West Africa. I do not want to see that happen in South Sudan. We saw we know what is going on in Sudan. We only have South Sudan, and that is the only country we have. So for me, we should denounce violence. My message to South Sudanese young people: please don't accept to be used for violence, because these people, when they come to Juba, they will divide the cake among themselves and they forget about you. We should not entertain violence. If we have problem, we talk like the way we are doing with the girl Machar, and it's because we are just online. Otherwise, I will be shaking his hands. We could be going for a tea after here, have a coffee of tea together, suppose, and we go to our homes, and we are friends, by the way. And that should be the team. Like, I disagree with the president, but if I meet the president, I greet him and we talk, and that is how it's supposed to be. And I thank you so much. I look forward to be invited for another. So may God bless us. May God bless South Sudan. All of us will work for the South Sudan we want, because nobody's going to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wani, Michael, and Machar. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful show and very productive discussion. This is what our people need. Thank you. And I'm looking, Legacy Media is looking forward to have you back again, Wani. And have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Belena, Sudana, Belena, 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 Taban, Mendaman, Yarapona. Jali Jukayana, Belena, Mamata, Sudan, Mujaja, Mafira, Dana, Jalna Maidin, Painana, Rapona. Belena, 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 Taban, Mendaman, Yarapona. Jali Jukayana, Belena, Mamurta, Sudan, Mujaja, Mafira, Dana, Jalna Maidin, Painana, Rapona. Belena, 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 Taban, Mintaman, Yarapuna. Jali Jukayana, Belena, Mamurta, Sudan, Mujaja, Mafira, Dana, Jalna Maidin, Painana, Rapuna. Ya Jab Sudan, Ya Kwana, Shit El Kumbalet, Fu Mushakil, Saldu Mitenda, Galba Mitenda. Ya Jab Sudan, Ya Kwana, Shit El Kumbalet, Fu Mushakil, Galba Mitenda, Galba Mitenda. Jab Sudan, Ya Kwana, Shit El Kumbalet, Fu Mushakil, Galba Mitenda, Galba Mitenda.
Thank you very much, our viewers in Facebook and YouTube and Clubhouse. We appreciate you, and our guests are wonderful, and we will have them back again with other guests. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, and have a wonderful morning, evening, wherever you are. May God bless you, and may God bless South Sudan. Peace TV.
Pinong
Ping William. Ato in Juba, Malatori, hey, I'm yo, Ping William. Ato in Benti, Walla Quaju, hey, wow, Ping William. Ato in Malkal, Walla Pinyaram, Ping William.